Hi guys, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery, and I'm located in Van.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Highland Heights, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk. Yeah. Okay, so tell us about tell us your whole life story. This is Heinrich van Ryzin. Henrik
Hello.
van Ryzin. I said Heinrich. I
It's okay.
had the German thing in my head.
The name, it never gets pronounced correctly. I'll take any pronunciation. It's fine with me.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So how do you like to introduce yourself?
Is this big? All right, this is the intro. Well, I'm Henrik van Ryzin. We're happening. It's happening.
We're live.
First of all, I just want to say it's an honor to be here. It's very strange to be on a podcast that you listen to all the time. So it's a cool experience. And I've been looking forward to it.
Adorable. And
it's been weird. Already. Denise, my partner Denise, is like, "What is with you today?" I'm like, "I'm on a podcast." I get very nervous. It's an exciting thing. So anyway, I'm very happy to be here. My name is Henrik van Ryzin. I am part of the team VanTiki. My wife Denise and I run VanTiki Studio in Eugene, Oregon.
Oh, nice. Cool.
And how long have y'all been working in clay?
Okay, that's the crazy question, because I did the math on it today and I had a little heart attack. I think I've been doing ceramics for over 20 years, which is weird because I always think that I'm like a novice and that I don't really know what I'm doing. But I started making tiki mugs in 2001 was my first mug. And so I started selling on eBay in 2002. And then it's just been kind of a slow ramp up from there. I was doing all hand-built stuff for a long time. And then I switched over to slip casting 6, 7, 8 years ago, I think. 8 years ago. So I've been doing slip casting primarily for 8 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
That's a long time. Yeah.
Me and Ryan
it is a long time. Like doing the math, I was like, oh,
years.
God. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird because I still feel like
Ryan's been doing it longer than I have.
Yeah, and I look at both of you as like, you guys know what you're talking about. You guys are pros.
Really?
I always, I didn't go to school for this. I don't know what I'm doing. I just read some books.
Yeah, I feel like I barely went to school for it. I went to school just enough to take advantage of all the opportunities of the different firing techniques you have access to, and the materials, so that you learn how to mix a glaze and put it through a sieve and all this stuff. But I don't feel like it was just a means of getting my skills to repetition and able to do that versus just the theory and understanding the history and all that stuff. I don't care as much about that. I just wanted to get access to the studio,
Well, I definitely know that I suffer from that. I didn't go to art school, so I can't call myself an artist. I don't sell in galleries, so I don't call myself an artist. I never said I was an artist. Only within the last few years have I comfortably been able to tell people that oh, what do you do for a living? I'll say, I'm an artist. I could finally put it into words, which is so crazy. But I always had that kind of self-doubt because I haven't been properly trained.
Okay, Becca's gonna switch her internet because it's a little flaky.
Okay, I was good. That's it.
That's good. That's good. Hopefully it stays recording. Okay, so you did a bunch of hand building early on. So you've always done the tiki mugs.
No, I stumbled. Yes. So as far as ceramics go, it's always been tiki mugs. I always wanted to be a special effects artist. That was my lifelong goal, was to work in the film industry. So I did that after I met my wife Denise in college, my wife partner, soulmate in college, and she also wanted to work in the film industry. So it's perfect. So we both moved to LA. She was a film editor and I was a special effects artist in the 90s, and it was awesome. It was super awesome. But it's like that, the David Byrne saying, "Watch out, you might get what you're after." I had the dream job, but I was like, I don't know if this is what I really want. I mostly because I just missed Denise. LA, the life there is crazy. We were like roommates that never saw each other. It was kind of weird. So we did it for 4 years, a little over 4 years, and finally we're like, you know what? Let's try something new. I wanted to try to live as an artist, make a go for it as an artist on my own. I missed Hawaii a lot. I missed my family a lot. in Hawaii, every time we would go back to Hawaii, we're like, Hawaii's pretty awesome. We should live there. So we did that. We moved to Hawaii. I thought I'd make it a go as a fine artist. At that time, I was doing a lot of bronze casting. That was like my hobby. I did that a lot in college. I loved it. I was a communications major. I have no official art degree, but I loved taking sculpting classes in college. So I was making bronze castings, and I was in a bunch of galleries in Hawaii. This is in 2000, and it was a disaster. And listening to your show, and you guys talk about galleries all the time, and I mean, a lot of folks that I'm friends with on Instagram talk about galleries, and I think I just had a bad experience with it. But it was such a bad experience that I was like, I'm not doing this ever again. I'm done with artists. Like, just so I went full commercial. I was doing animation and illustration, video game design work, all of that stuff for a long time. Well, not for a long time. I mean, a couple of years. Then a friend of mine took me to a tiki bar, and I saw a concert at a tiki bar, and I was served. I didn't even drink at the time.
Which one was it? Do you remember?
It doesn't exist anymore, sadly. The mug that I got from there is on, I call it the black shelf. It's the shelf of tiki mugs that I've been to, bars that I've been to that no longer exist. So it's tragic. It's tragic. I know it happens. It happens. Circle of life. But it was the last, I would say, silver age tiki bar, if you will, in Waikiki at the time. It was in the Ala Moana Hotel, and it was called the Hawaiian Hut, and it was incredible. And it closed like literally months after I went to it. But I was served a Mai Tai and a tiki mug, and it was like an epiphany. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I love toys. I love monsters. I love collecting stuff. And this was like a perfect mix of like, it's a toy. It's also functional. It transports you somewhere else. I love that it's a functional object that's also like a gateway to somewhere else. Like it's an escapist thing. And my dad's an engineer, and I loved the design challenge of how far can you push this toy, this design, this escapist object to the point where you can still use it as a cup, but it looks like something totally different. Like that really tickled something in me. And and that was it. I was hooked. I'm like, all right. So I had never, I mean, I did ceramics like in, middle school. I never did any ceramics in high school or college. But I was good friends with my fourth grade art teacher, and I knew she had a kiln in her house. So I literally called her the next day. I'm like, can I come over and make a tiki mug? And she said, sure. So that's what I did. They then filled up my desk at work. I was heading this animation team, and this was like during the .com boom days. So I had this animation team, and one of my friends was like, have you heard of this thing called eBay? I'm like, no, I haven't. And so eBay was great. And so I started selling those hand-built mugs. But I mean, I always talk about like, I know this is a podcast, so I'm holding one hand really high and one hand really low. And the really high hand is my day job, and the low hand is my ceramics hobby. And slowly throughout time, the ceramics hobby overtook, that became the high hand, and my day job became the low hand.
As in financially, or as in like enjoyment, or in what way?
I was really enjoying both in different ways. I can tell you, interesting, you talk about the enjoyment thing. I was really struggling with clients and client feedback. I consider myself an easygoing guy, but sometimes I would go up the wall doing commercial art for people, because it's that cliche thing of like, I really like it, but, my friend's, sister says she doesn't like that color. I'm like, why did you hire me? You should just hire your friend's sister. So just that stuff, after a while, it would just be like, oh my God. So that got to be a little much, but what really was, it was like we were making more and more of a name for ourselves in the ceramics world. And Denise, my partner, and I realized, hey, if we leave Hawaii, we could make a go of this full time. But we would have to leave the state to do it, just because of the extreme cost of living in Hawaii. So that's what we did, and that's why we moved to Oregon. Okay, wait, this earbud is falling out of my ear. Let me fix this. Sorry. Pause. Get in there.
These earbuds are so.
I'm not going to touch it.
It's good. It's good.
Freaking earbuds.
I can't even keep those things in my ears. I'm glad I don't. I mean, I know you do runs and stuff. I don't know if you use those.
No, this is like the third time I've ever worn them. I wear them for flying, and I'm going to use the real ones for the podcast because you guys are important. All right. Sorry.
Oh.
You're good.
Okay. So we decided.
if it makes you feel any better, my earphones that I use normally for the podcast cost a whole $20. So
See, that's what I'm talking. Well, I was going to use. This is what I wear every day. These beat up, nasty things. But yeah, it's okay.
yeah.
Anyway, that was our big. So that was the big like epiphany. Was like if we leave Hawaii, we could try to make a go of it full time, just doing ceramics. And that's what we did. That was like that was a huge leap of faith for us to come out here. Yeah.
Wow.
When was that?
That was It was 2016. I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah. I think.
Okay.
Was it? Yeah. And it was crazy. We just bought land. So we didn't have anything, and so my. This gets really crazy. My whole family moved. My parents sold their house. My brother that lived in Hawaii also sold their house, and we sold our house, and we all came out here. We bought a bunch of land next to each other. So we're all neighbors. Sounds crazy. We are not a cult, I swear to God.
Not out of the question for Pacific Northwest potential.
It's true. I know.
Well, what I was gonna say earlier is that I think it's near Eugene that there's a big cult that is like a big commune cult that happened in the 90s.
Is that the Netflix documentary about it?
I think so.
One?
Yeah. Oh. Well, there was a massive one near us. I was watching that documentary. I'm like, oh my God, that's like an hour from here. Yeah.
Yeah,
huge.
It was huge. And they and I don't want to. It's not the Jonesburg, but it's Jonestown. But because that's out here. But
it's going to come to me. It's still there, but it's not.
Is it
I guess
still there?
quite. It's not
one
quite
of those documentaries. I've probably watched 3 or 4 of those. I can't remember if it's I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
You keep talking.
Okay, so why Oregon? Did you pick Oregon specifically because of a certain reason, or?
Well, I had done a bunch of trips when I was doing the video game design. I was going to Seattle a lot for a client there, and I just really fell in love with the Pacific Northwest. It's so beautiful here. It's green all the time, which I loved. The winters are mild. I like to run. I love to be outside, so I could figure to it won't snow. I can run year round. Spoiler, it does snow here, I discovered. But it's okay. You can still run on it. Yeah. So, and I wanted someplace where I could get some space. Hawaii, it's an island, as you know. It's very small. And so you always have people on top of you. So I was like, I want to be able to have a studio and not worry if I need to run my table saw or if I have the event on the kiln running and my neighbor's not going to yell at me over the fence. So that was kind of the thing. I wanted some space. So that's why we picked out here. I felt I could get the most bang for our Hawaii sale of our house buck if I came here. Yeah,
for sure.
That was the thing. Yeah.
Nice. Becca, your hand is raised?
Yes, it's the Rajneesh organization.
That's it. Yes.
Rajneesh?
It's the Big Muddy Ranch near Antelope, Oregon, and it was established in 1981.
What's the name of the dock? Does it say?
I think it's the free love cult that terrorized America.
Is it Love Country?
Yes, it's Love Country. I think
Love
that's it.
Country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
because they bought 64,000 acres.
Yes,
it's not like
massive.
A small situation.
They bought a ranch. Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think they still technically own the land. It's weird. So we love to take like an annual pilgrimage to Yellowstone. I love road trips. Let me tell you, you move to the mainland, road trips, they are so awesome. So we'll drive to Yellowstone, and I always we talk about that cult because we go. I think we kind of get close-ish to it on that drive. Yeah.
Wow.
It's very fascinating.
Yeah. So we are not the cult.
No.
Well, that's good.
It's nice to have land though, and you can kind of I see like the deer in your videos.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's heaven. I feel very fortunate to have what I have. It took a long time to get here, and I'm super cognizant of it. Like I do YouTube videos and things like that, and I used to have a lot of hesitation to show equipment and things that I use, but now I just do it with the caveat of this is what I have, but that's because I'm doing this full time. But when I started, it was in my laundry room, which was, the size of a closet. And, I made do with a bucket, and that's all I had, So,
right.
So I am super grateful for the space that we have. And I didn't realize until we moved here how many layers of stress and anxiety that added to our lives. Trying to run my business out of my house, it was really scary. I remember I would glaze everything in my backyard, and my neighbors would literally peek over and like, "Hey, is that toxic?" I'm like, "It's not toxic," and I'm just doing it down here. But so yeah, to not have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Huge relief. Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine a lot of the expenses are super high too, like electricity and all that stuff.
We would pay so much just to get a box. Oh, well, okay, electricity. Thank you. That's a perfect example. So to run a kiln to just do a standard like glaze firing cost me about $25 in electricity in Hawaii. And it cost me, I think, $4 or something like that, $5 here of firing. So huge shifts. Boxes, we were paying a fortune to bring boxes out to then ship back, with a mug in it. You start to use all these third-party shippers that would consolidate shipments, and they would ship a thing to Hawaii. So it was nuts. It was nuts. I would buy $100 worth of boxes and spend $150 to ship them to myself. Like, it was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the expenses you don't think about. And I mean, you it's very regional where you're at. So it's like, if you're in LA, you have expenses of cost of living and stuff like that.
Yep.
Your food and everything. So it's, whew. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got the setup there. You got the home studio. Is that separate? That's on your property, but it's like separate.
It is. Yeah. We built a separate studio. And that was like a conscious decision. So in Hawaii, our house had like an enclosed, there's just a screened in like lanai, like a patio in the back. And that was the laundry room / rumpus room or whatever. And that became the clay studio. And the downside of that is, one, I could see it from every place in the house. Like, I could never not see the studio because it was just out the window. You know what I mean? So like, I'm watching TV, I'd be like, yeah, I really should be, glazing those pots. And so so there was always that like constant, it felt like it was just like looking on the shoulder, like, hey, you watching TV? You think you should be working in here? And then two, there would always be this like pathway of clay dust around the house. And we tried to be very careful with everything, but still like it's in the house. So we said, let's separate it so that when we're in the house, we don't have to see work ever. And there's at least a little bit of space between us and the clay dust. So yeah, it's a separate building, and it's not massive. It's a 20-foot by 40-foot footprint. And actually half of it, you can't see it because it's a podcast, but behind me, 1/3 of it was supposed to be a garage. We designed it to be a garage, but immediately when we built this, we're like, it's too small. And we started to branch out. We got a laser cutter, which I love. We always are trying to expand what we make. Like, I love ceramics, but I love making all kinds of things.
It's like an experience from like you're building a whole experience and different things because it's like, how many tiki mugs do you need?
Exactly. And and I love to explore different forms and make different things. And actually we bought the laser to help. It helps tremendously with the ceramics production too. We were getting parts cut outside of here, like to make armatures and things like that. And since we're such a small studio, they would push our orders back. I'm like, all right, we're just gonna get our own laser. But anyway, the garage quickly is not a garage anymore. Now that's like the fabrication room. That's where the shipping room is, all that stuff. So the cars are outside, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, in the Pacific Northwest, I feel like it's okay to have your car outside because like there really isn't that much snow.
No, there isn't. Yeah. Although we are like we're in the hills outside of Eugene, and it's crazy. So we're at like 1,000 feet of elevation, and it's weird. I know nothing about snow or winter because I've only lived I've lived in Hawaii, LA, and in Japan, and we didn't have any snow in any of those spots. But definitely we get it just a few hundred feet up above Eugene. We do get snow here, and it's nuts. We've been like snowed in insanely, which is fun. It's fun, but it's different.
It is different.
Yeah. Now it's not. I did go to college in Illinois, and that was awful. Those are awful winters. Never ever. Like when you were asking why we moved here, like we are not moving to the Midwest. I have nothing against the Midwest. I just don't want to live there and experience another winter there. Oh my God.
Right. And Illinois is mild compared to like Minnesota and Michigan in the winter.
One of my best friends from childhood moved to Minnesota. I'm like, are you nuts? It's very beautiful here. I'm like, okay, it probably is. I don't know. I'll never know.
Depends on your hobbies and stuff, right? Because some people enjoy the snow and the hiking and the
Oh, definitely. I mean, I live in Colorado because there's at least winter sports, but Illinois is just. Oof.
No, you would hate Colorado.
You think so?
Because of the snow? Yeah.
I mean, I've been snowed in multiple times, and whenever I go to visit my parents in the winter, there's always a foot of snow. Always. Yeah. The only thing that's nice about it is that it is a quote unquote dry snow. So like, and I'm so used to it that like, you know, it's 30 degrees and I'm like in a t-shirt and and like jeans, like outside doing stuff. But it got to -9 degrees when I was there in January.
Yeah, that's far too cold.
It is far too cold.
Yeah.
It's very cold. So yeah, but every place has that, and it gets super fucking hot in the summer.
Yeah. Well, we definitely get that here. We've this summer we put air conditioning in the studio, but we had to save up forever for it. It's like a 3-year plan to get air conditioning into the studio. When we had this place built, our architect insisted that we wouldn't need it. And technically, he's right. Like when we run the kilns in here, it gets the studio very hot, obviously. But if we open up the windows overnight, it cools off. But forest fires have been happening a lot, and so we can't open up windows, and so the studio just becomes like a little hot box. The air conditioning is nice.
Yeah, for sure. When I was in Washington, I was like, I don't need air conditioning. And the first summer I went through it and I was like, this is not fun. This is not fun at all. And then I had a student whose husband was he was a heating and air guy, and she made him put an air conditioner in because she could not handle the heat. And so she was like, no, Becca, you're getting one. And I was like, okay.
Oh, wait, you mean when you actually owned the studio in town?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. I mean, I love it. I mean, it was cool. Designing this studio was so much fun. I love everything about the studio we built. And the only kind of like thing that was missing was the AC. And now that that's in, perfect studio. I have no complaints. I love it here.
Is there one thing you wish you had, like other than the AC, that like hindsight, but like you're like whatever, but I wish I would have planned this in?
2 things that I wish I did differently, since you asked. One, perfect. I thought that I was being super smart and putting drains in the floor, and so I could like mop the floors and then like wash everything down the drain. I don't do that ever. I went to Ensika when it was in Portland a few years ago, and they had, I'm looking at it right now, this Dust Cobra vacuum cleaner that is safe for clay. So I use that thing, and then I'll just mop, and then it's fine. Like I have no dust. But the unfortunate thing is for them putting since they put the drain in there, my whole floor is not level. Okay. So that drives me bananas, especially when I'm pouring silicone molds and things like that. I have to shim up all my tables so that they're completely flat with all these popsicle sticks and all that stuff. So I often regret having this slightly off level floor. It's a very small, silly thing, but
no, but that's realistic.
I'm sure it cost more to.
It cost a fortune to do it. Like our contractor kept asking, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "No, I'm planning for future Henrik. He's going to be so glad I did this." Spoiler: future Henrik regrets it immensely. But it was a huge expense, and it's plumbing. Like I have to have this. I shouldn't have done it. So that's regret number 1.
And all that stuff.
Yeah. And then regret number 2 is, so like I said, my studio in Hawaii, I think it was 10 feet by 9 feet. That's the size of my studio in Hawaii. And I'm like, I'm going to be able to adjust. So I'm making my new studio 20 feet by 40 feet. That's massive. I could never need more room than that. I wish I made it a little bigger. My friends, we had a bunch of friends in Portland, and they visited us while they were framing the studio out. And they walked in, and I was so proud of the space. I'm like, isn't this incredible? And they're like, yeah, but why did you make it so small? I'm like, small? What are you talking about? This is enormous.
It's all relative, right?
It's all relative. So I do wish we had just a little more room, only because I had never thought we'd get this laser thing, and the laser, and I'd like to have more fabrication space because it's become a bit more of our business than I thought it would be. So it would be nice to have that. But all in all, really no complaints. I will say, I think it's easy to get bullied if you have to hire a contractor and stuff like that. Or it's easy to get bullied into doing things that you don't think you need. Like I have bathroom in this studio, and I only wanted just a toilet in here. I didn't want to put in a shower. What is the shower in the studio? What is a space for a spray booth? And our architect and our contractor was like, well, if you ever want to resell this space, you really should have a shower in it. So I put that in there, but now I'm like, it's dead space. And I am considering ripping it out and pushing my spray booth into it, because it's just silly. If I sell this place, I'm going to sell this place. I'm not, they can figure out how to put a shower in it. Like, it's silly to live with something that you don't want forever, because someday you might sell it. So yeah, that's my only regret, which is I feel terrible saying this, because I have a dream studio. I do not want to complain about my studio at all. I love it here.
But hey, that could save people expenses.
But no, like tons of people build their own studios, and it's good for them to hear the things that you're like, I wish I wouldn't have done this. Yeah. I think it's funny you said that about the bathroom, because Danny Meisiger, his studio is so funny to me, because like he built it himself, and he's phenomenal. And his bathroom was like a toilet, and then the sink was literally one of his sinks that he made.
Oh, and that's awesome.
And it was set in, no, it gets even better. It was set inside a Home Depot 5-gallon bucket. and that's the drain. And so he just takes it outside and dumps it outside. And I'm like, I fucking love you, Danny. Like,
that's fantastic.
That man has zero ego as far as like what is, it's like, gotta have a drain. You have to have a drain. Like, no.
Well, we were so close to not putting a bathroom in the studio, but then it was the whole clay in the house thing. Like, I didn't want to, get clay. I'm like, we're trying to build this like portal of no clay goes past this space. Yeah, we've been pretty good about it. One thing. I was thinking, what else would I do? I initially we have like the house is a 2-bedroom house, and then the closet of what is the second bedroom, but it's actually our craft room, and we use it for a bunch of different stuff. And I built a photo booth into the closet there, and that has eventually gotten kicked out. So now I have to figure out how to squeeze a photo booth into the studio here. So that's another thing. I'm like, I wish I had thought about that. Like, I could put that in the shower. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. I just thought of that right now. I can make the shower the photo booth.
Actually, that would be a great idea. It's very
because it's enclosed. I can black it out. All right. Well, maybe that's I get to take the shower head off. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, multi-purpose. There you go.
I'm gonna go take care of that. I'll be back.
That's awesome. So
you were back in the day. You were hand building. Shifting gears to the process a little bit. When you were shifting to like mold making, slip casting, how was that process of like ramping up and that learning curve?
So it's interesting. That's a crazy story. So I did a ton of mold making as a special effects artist. That was my main job for a couple of years, was in the mold department. So I was making massive molds. I'm making molds of like 16-foot alligators and dead bodies and millions of things, all the way down to tiny little things, dental appliances and eyeballs. And so we were molding things with silicones. We were using syntactic foam epoxy molds, fiberglass molds. It was mold fest. And we did a lot of stone molds, like plaster molds, and we would use a lot of dental stones, which is like a super hard types of plaster. So I had a lot of experience with that, like tons of experience with it. But then I didn't do it for years. So I left that industry, and then 10 years later, I'm like, oh, maybe I might try slip casting. I was familiar with slip cast tiki mugs, obviously, because I collected tiki mugs, and I loved the art form of them. I only started hand building because I was like, I don't have space to do anything but this, and so I was hand building. I was taking them to my art teacher's kiln to be fired. Eventually, Denise is like, get a kiln, just get a kiln, get one. So we got one. That whole thing of me not wanting to call myself an artist, I got the kiln, and I got so afraid of that kiln. It sat in our laundry room for like a year, and I didn't even touch it because I was too afraid of it. I'm like, I'm not worthy of this thing. And it freaked me out. It was an L&L kiln. It was beautiful.
Nice.
Shout out to sponsors. And I bought that after insane research, and I'm so glad I got that kiln. I'm serious. This is not because L&L is with you guys, but it's because I get so much guff here living in Oregon, and I don't have a Scott kiln because it's like seems like everybody's,
yeah,
they're right up in Portland. Like I've toured the factory and everyone is like, oh, you got a Scott, right? I'm like, actually, I don't. No, but I love that kiln to death. It came with us from Hawaii. It was an incredible kiln. But that's out there forever. But anyways, years went by and I was hand building mugs, and then I started vending. And it's funny, listen to your show. Like I said, it gives me all the PTSD of vending. I would travel to this big tiki show in San Diego called Tiki Oasis. And so I would spend, 4 months building a bunch of mugs, hand building a bunch of mugs, box them all up, ship them to San Diego, to a UPS store in San Diego. Then we would fly over to San Diego, drive over there, pick up all the packages, and then set up and vend. And then nothing would sell, and then I'd have to pack everything up and ship it back. And the cruel thing I found out is it's very inexpensive to ship things away from Hawaii, but it costs more than twice to ship them to Hawaii. And it's because the planes bring all the packages to Hawaii and then they're empty. So they need to fill them. Very little volume leaves the island. So they have these empty planes that they're flying back to Hawaii. So they're happy to fill them with stuff. So it's easy to ship stuff off the island, but everything is being shipped. So it was a nightmare. But at Tiki Oasis, there is another mug maker there. Their professional name is Ikum Bokum. John Mulder is the artist. And he came out of the gate swinging with some incredible designs. I loved his stuff. And I asked him, at the time I had this flask, I'm like, John, can we do a collaboration? Could I give you one of these and you do a slip cast mold for it? And he looked at me, he's like, Henrik, you can do this yourself. And he walked off. I'm like, okay. But it was good. It was like the little kick in the okole, if I may say, that I needed. And I went back and I was like, all right, I know how to make molds. I can do this. And so I did it. That summer I made my first slip cast mold. And it went really well, and it just kind of slowly snowballed from there. It was nice. I loved hand building because you don't have to worry about undercuts in doing hand built mugs. But the heartbreaking thing about hand building is I think the loss rate is pretty high as far as you'd get like a weird crack in the bottom. And I was building these huge, some of my mugs were over a foot and a half tall, these massive, I guess you could call them a pitcher. I loved it. Denise would come in and be like, oh God, are you making another giant mug again? I'm like, yeah, look at it. It's awesome. Because you're hand building, it's fast. It's like, but just their own weight and size was, I think, kind of to their detriment. And so I was getting cracking and things like that. And so, you spend forever and you put it in there and it cracks. And it's like, well, I could sell it as a second, but you can never really drink out of it. And then I'm like, well, I wouldn't feel right pricing it for what I would want to get for it. You know what I mean? Because it's got a crack in it. And I threw a lot of mugs away. And so I saw slip casting as a way to avoid that dilemma. And for the most part, that's been the case. Yeah.
Did you feel like those events were like the place to sell those kind of things? Or did you just feel like the audience just wasn't big enough to meet?
No, the audience is big. That is like the Comic-Con of Tiki. There were 5 different vending rooms. I can't remember how many thousands of people attend Tiki Oasis. It is nuts. If you've never been, I know you go to Tiki bars, you should definitely put it in your calendar. It's quite the bonanza.
That would be a fun gift for Rachel.
Everything that you guys talked about on your last episode, I went through in my head. I'm like, am I pricing my things correctly? Did I not have a good enough display? Maybe I just wasn't in a good location. All these things went through my head. It's weird because, and also I'm like, how come the first year went really well, but the second year was a complete disaster? All these things, like, what was it? I took like an AP biology class in high school, and I always remember we had a rat. Like, we each had our own little rat and we built a little maze for him and everything like that. I love my rat. He was the best little rat. And you find out doing all these experiments that the rat that behaves the hardest is the one that you only occasionally reward. And that's the rat that will just go insane trying to figure out how to get that reward. And that is me trying to set up my booth, is why does it get a reward sometimes, but it doesn't get a reward another time? And I think that for speaking myself, I would go insane trying to get that reward again, to try to change every permutation of my booth, what I'm doing, display, location, to chase that one good day that I had. And why don't I get that good day again? And it's maddening. It's really crazy. I will say that we vended 3 times at Tiki Oasis. We had 1 incredible year and 2 awful years. Looking back on it in hindsight, I think what happened is that first year that I had really well, at that time the event had a thing called an artist alley, where you had to be an artist making your own stuff there in the alley, and you'd be signing work you made, so everyone would know that this is the spot to go for this stuff. And then the other years I was willy-nilly. I was next to like somebody making dog toys that they brought in from China, and I was like next to somebody else making pastries, and it was impossible for people to find you. And then the other thing, I know that the things that I was brought were way too expensive. This is an event that people travel to from all over the country, so they're there and they don't have the money after flying to this place to drop on a bunch of fragile ceramics, you know what I mean, to take back on an airplane with them. So that was, right. I think in hindsight, I see that, but at the time I was just like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And when we moved to Oregon, we thought, oh, we're going to vend all the time. I was excited to get back on that vending train. But we just didn't. We pretty much sell everything online now. I did vending just 2 weeks ago for the first time in a long time. It was a weird weekend, but only because it was a cool event that checked off all of my boxes. There was no booth fee. It was invite. They cooked us breakfast.
Hell yeah.
And free drinks. So
wow.
It was a win-win. And then for me, the ultimate one, and this is for me the ultimate one, it was only one day from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So nice. Everyone that was there knew that they had to like get down and dirty. If they see something, like they have to get it. The first Oasis I went to, I think, was 4 days of vending, which is a long time.
Yeah, that's a big undertaking.
Yeah, it's a long time. So it was funny. The first year we went across, an artist set up his booth across from us. This elaborate, looked like a sunken ship. It was insane. I'm sitting there with like, I have like some fabric on a table, all that we could bring over from Hawaii. He's building this huge thing, and then just puts a sign on it that says, and so this is like Thursday night is the first opening, and just puts a sign on it, come back Sunday at noon. And that's it. And he wasn't even there all weekend. I'm like, oh my God, that's the way to do it. And I mean, we were not supposed to do that, but they did it. And I guess they didn't get in trouble. I don't know. And of course, at noon, there was a massive line at his booth for this stuff, because that was the only chance they had to get it. Yeah.
What kind of, I'm really curious, because I know that you sell your stuff for a lot of money now. What kind of prices? Like, I would love to know like the evolution of prices that you had from the beginning to like now.
I mean, you don't have to
be super specific.
No, I'm happy to talk about it, because it is. I think it's fascinating too. We've learned a lot. So when I first started doing the hand built mugs, I wouldn't set prices on them at all. I started selling on eBay, and at that time that was like the .com boom, and I don't know, there was tech money. That was the first, and it's like also Tiki mug collecting, it kind of ebbs and flows as far as like the heydays, and that was definitely an explosion. I think that was a big renaissance for it. So I put a mug up, and it would sell for a ridiculous amount of money, and I wouldn't understand it.
What's a ridiculous amount of money?
Like $1,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so
and that was
I would put
built one, so it's completely
hand built. So it's a one of a kind piece. Yeah, it's truly.
Wow.
And it is I put a lot of work into them, but still, it was ridiculous. But it almost became scary for me. Like I had a lot of imposter syndrome when, and I still feel that to this day. I am very fortunate when I sell an AP mug that sometimes the prices go very high like that, and I don't feel worth it. And Denise, she's the best. She'll be packing up. I'm like, hey, maybe we should put a couple other things in the box. Let me, and she's like, hey. They felt this was a good price for it. They are getting this one of a kind thing. You don't need to throw a bunch of other stuff in the box, But I
love Denise.
I would not be here without her. She is the voice of reason, but she doesn't like doing podcasts, so that's why she's not here right now. But it is truly a partnership. VanTiki would not be what it is today without her involvement, and her coming on as a full 50-50 partner when we moved here changed everything. All right, so where was I? I talked about how great Denise is. Denise is the best. But yeah, she'll do that whole imposter syndrome thing. So you were talking about pricing. So at that time, I had I had several full-time jobs. I was to survive in Hawaii, Denise and I were working between 3 or 4 jobs each. So I was doing, we co-owned an animation and illustration company together. And we had a lot of clients, both locally and on the mainland. Denise was a dog sitter. She was a dog trainer. I was teaching at a high school and a middle school part-time. We just did so much. Oh, and then also we built a micro house in our backyard, and it was an Airbnb. So we were doing all of these things. So the income was from the ceramics. I didn't feel a lot of pressure to be in the studio every day because I had all these other plates that I was spinning. So once in a while, I would sit down for a week and make a big tray of mugs and then price them like, okay, I'm going to sell these for $60 a piece, a hand-built mug. And I would put them all up and they would sell instantly. And I'm like, oh, God. And then it felt, oh, now I got to go make a whole bunch more. I felt like I didn't have enough. And so I felt better back then to just put one slowly on eBay. And I just felt like it gave me more time to produce because I couldn't do it full time. We moved here and we're going to do this full time. And that was the big question of how do we price our mugs? And so we did a lot of math and we priced mugs. And also I'm looking at what the market will bear. And people are spending a lot of money on tiki mugs these days. And we sometimes struggle as makers because it's just Denise and I. We don't have anybody else here helping us. We are the only ones. How come the background is blurry now? I don't understand.
It's on your setting. You've got some setting really? Or something that's.
God, I'm sorry about that. That's okay. There's nothing top secret behind me. It's just doing that. So we were looking at. So we I'm not going to say compete, but a lot of mugs are imported from China. So these are brought in from China and we know what the price per product is when it's brought in from China. And we're looking at what people bring in from China and then what they sell them for and what people are buying them for. And then we're looking at like, well, God, it's just us. And we can only produce so much. So we decided, you know what, we came here and we were initially offering wholesale prices for bars. We were doing bar mugs. And we tried that for 2 years and it just wouldn't work. We just couldn't make the math work. Reducing a price to sell it to a bar for them to resell the mug was really hurting us a lot financially. And I think that we were selling mugs.
Was this still in the hand-built stage? Were you still hand-building them?
No, when we moved here, we completely switched to slip cast mugs. So
okay.
I completely stopped hand-building. It just, for me, I sometimes think about going back to hand-building, but my loss rate, I guess I know a lot more about ceramics now than I did then, so I might have less of a loss rate. But for me, like I said, I love toys. I love collecting things. For me, kind of the tragedy of a hand-built mug is when I really feel like I nailed the design, I then have to make the whole thing again. Like I can't cast another one. Like I love like being able to spend a long time dialing in a sculpture and then molding it. And then I know it sounds cliche, but it feels magical every time I pull a copy of it out of the mold. It's like Fantasia with the brooms all multiplying. That's what it's like. It's really weird that, especially the first day of casting, like say I have like 10 production molds. First day, like I go from this sculpture that's all beat up because I took it out of the mold and it's destroyed, the original sculpture. Then all of a sudden, bam, I've got 10 of them on the shelf. I'm like, oh, it's like magic. And then the best part is the second day, it doubles a number. And I've got like 20 on the shelf. It's so awesome. Of course, it's kind of, then after that, then it doesn't double every day, sadly, but it's still a super rad experience. Now I know that it's slip casting. I understand a lot of ceramic people don't think slip casting is ceramics. I get that. That's fine. But
we do.
Yeah, the process that's involved in that. Like, I mean, you said yourself, you worked in the industry for years of like learning the mold making process.
Yeah.
So, like, if you came in without that experience, you would have been like sinking.
Yeah, well, it's funny too. I do know I go about mold making very differently than a lot of people that were trained to do it specifically for ceramics. And so it's cool. I love talking to other incredible mold makers that I've met through Instagram and sharing mold techniques because there's so many different ways to do it. I mean, there's no wrong way to make a mold. If the mold works, it's the right way, So I love learning about mold making. It's super cool. But anyway, back to pricing. You're asking about pricing, and I keep dancing around this question. We're selling mugs wholesale, and we realized that we couldn't do that. It was basically hurting us because we would put aside our own personal production work to do these mugs for bars. And there was a lot of like, well, one, we love these bars, and two, we want the exposure. But then it just got to the point where that scale of is it worth it? Are we getting the bang for the buck on the exposure versus the hit that we take in our own personal production, making all these mugs that we're selling for less? So yeah, now we are making our own mugs. I feel very fortunate as an artist that when I was designing mugs originally, I was like, it has to be simple because we have to hit X price point or else we won't be able to sell them. Now I feel like with this zombie jug that we're doing, I have done everything on this mug that I would not allow myself to do in the past. It's super, super intricate mold. I mean, it's a multi-piece mold. It's 2 castings that I joined together. There's ceramic decals involved. There's extensive masking and multi-layered glaze work on it. Then after it's all done, I go and I do a bunch of hand like lashing of cording on it and stuff like that. We spend a ton of time on each one of these mugs, but the only reason I'm doing that is because I am fortunate to have slowly snowballed up this fan base that people will collect the work at a price that we'll be able to survive on because they take.
What
so
are you
much time.
selling it for?
Oh God, now you're asking me, and I don't know off the top of my head. I don't want to say the wrong number. I would tell you, but the price is on my phone, which I'm talking to right now.
Is it already posted on your Instagram?
It should be. Yeah, if you go back like a bunch of posts, it's the zombie jug, and there's like a little picture of it spinning or something like that.
So what would you price your wholesale mugs for the bars and that you felt like was?
Oh yeah. Okay, so back in the day, we were the last one we did, I think we did it for like $70 a mug for that mug, and maybe that sounds like a lot of money, but that mug was a very intricate casting for us to do.
Right. Yeah.
There was a ton of after detailing to do on it. So we were putting a lot of time into that. And then, so what hurts us, and I know that you guys do wholesaling sometimes. This is a question I have for you. When you wholesale a mug, do you set a retail price for your mugs?
Okay, so what we try to do, I mean, we've talked a lot about this, and the episode with Heidi Fehrenbacher, which was probably like 5 episodes ago, we kind of talk about it. And what I think is more reasonable is to price your mug for wholesale and then double it for retail. So what makes sense, if the mug makes sense to you at a wholesale price, then you double it. And then if it's doubled and you're like, wow, then you're like, well, you're worth it. But I think that both me and Ryan probably started off being like, oh, this is our retail price, and then let's just cut it in half. We've definitely, I don't know about him, but I've definitely flipped that. And I will say, how much do I want this for wholesale? And then I just double it, and then that's the price.
Mine's less scientific. I just kind of go with feel. Like I've always priced based on supply and demand, and like my market of like what people price it when I started, and then I just pretty much increase the price a couple dollars every year because I can't make as many, and then I get more people that follow me. So when I get to wholesale, I'm like, there's certain forms that I will wholesale and certain forms that I won't. So if it's a mug, I'm okay to wholesale it for $18 for a $36 retail mug, and I'm fine with that because I'm not making like 100 of them. Usually, if it's going to a coffee shop, they're only getting 6 to 12 of them.
So that's the thing. I'm shipping off like 100 or 200 of these things.
Right.
And so the profit margin is massive for the final seller of the piece. And I will be honest, I really struggle with like the gallery model of them taking 50%. I think that model works great if I am selling giclées or prints, but it doesn't work when I am buying very expensive materials and putting a lot of physical labor into producing this thing. And then they get all that. And I mean, I don't want to sound greedy, but that's just the way I feel about it. I don't think it works.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's funny because like I never really thought about it in that regard where you're like, yeah, it makes sense if you're having somebody else print your cards and you're sending it off and you're not doing all of the work.
Yeah.
But when you are doing all the work, it does like sound awful.
Yeah. Oh, it was in Hawaii. It was a nightmare. The year that I was trying to do gallery sales, it was awful. I mean, I guess I never felt that they earned their 50% commission at all.
Yeah.
So what's happening with the bar thing, and I loved working with all the bars that we've worked with. It's been an incredible arrangement. But we would deliver a mug with a kind of a handshake agreement, or an idea of what it'd be like. Basically, we like, okay, this is what we say this is retailing for. We're going to give it to you for a slight discount, with the hopes that you are going to use our name and just build an event around this, make your money back on liquor sales, blah, blah, blah. But it turned out that some of the sales, and this is no fault on them, they were striking while the iron is hot. They would basically like sell it for 3 times what I would ever have sold a mug for on my own. And it put us in a bit of an uncomfortable position, because I wouldn't have priced it that high. And so I'm like, oh God, are people going to think I'm price gouging? But nobody thought that. They just bought it all and they were fine. But then I get a little frustrated, because that's a huge amount of money that we missed out on.
Because they're like, we have this connection with the ceramic artist that's going to make this thing, and you made it custom for them. You're not, you don't just take a mold that you already have, change the stamp on the bottom to include their logo, and then ship it to them.
But
I think. Oh, go on.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say, in that situation, like looking back on it, obviously, because you're not doing bars anymore, but like for people that are worried about that, because that's happened to me too, where I've sold stuff to a shop and they've like tripled the price. For me, I don't really care, but if you do care, that means that you need to be, instead of doing a handshake deal, doing a contract, saying this is our price that you need to do, blah blah blah. So
totally, if we do another mug like that, definitely that is the plan. And I'm really good friends with still all the bars that we've worked with, and one of them does come back to us often, like, come on, maybe we do another project. And they have been very upfront. They kind of acknowledge the elephant in the room of like, okay, we know things got a little bananas on that last sale. How can we more fairly distribute the profit from that? So that was cool of them. But for us, it's just it's a struggle. So so that's pricing wise, that's kind of where we're at. I feel that we're lucky that Denise and I know how many mugs we can produce in a set amount of time, and we look at like, these are expenses, and how as long as we can hit our expenses for that.
Because the biggest expense for you is the labor, right? It's just so time intensive to go through all the steps.
It takes an incredible amount of time, and it's weird. Slip casting, I will say, the weird thing about slip casting is the repetitive nature of slip casting. For sure, you feel like it's Groundhog Day. Every day is the same day. You go in and you start the podcast. You turn on the slip tank, and you get all the molds out. And that repetitive motion, but there's also like okay, here we go. It's the same mold again. Like every mug is my favorite mug when I start it, and then it's my most hated mug, and I can't look at it when I'm done with it. But then 6 months later, I'm like, ooh, that's a pretty mug. So,
I just got the price on that jug. So it's a 32-ounce jug. 350 jugs is how many you're making, and they're $350 a piece.
There you go.
Plus shipping and handling.
Yeah. So it's expensive. I'm not going to lie. I can go grab one.
And that's a big order, though. 350 mugs.
It's massive. We're going to be spending months and months and months. And it's funny.
Yeah.
So is this have they gone on sale already?
Yeah, they're sold. So I can talk about that. That's an interesting thing that I'd love to talk about. So here's this blur thing. It's driving me crazy, but here it is. So, you've got a decal.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, we do all the lashing on the back. And there's a lot of masking. It's a process. It's a process to make these for sure. And it's big. God, this blur. I can't stand it. Skype. So yeah, it's funny. Inevitably, when we post this and like the edition size, there's going to be a comment that does the mathematician steps in and multiplies the edition size by the price. It's like, wow, that's a really quick way to make X amount of money. And it's as if, I press a button in the studio and 350 mugs just fall out of a closet, and it's like, I don't think you understand. This is going to be months and months and months and months and months and months of work. for 2 people. Like, it's like, so yeah, it's an incredible amount of work.
Can I come help you for like a week and learn?
We love help. Yeah, come on over. We got plenty of room for the van. Like,
oh my
got
God.
acres.
Becca will take you up on that. She's not kidding.
I will. I'm not kidding.
Come on over.
Oh my God, I'm going to be in Utah this winter. Maybe I can come up for a week and then help you out in the studio.
That would be rad. I would love that. Yeah, it would be super cool. The one thing I'll say about pricing, we have struggled a lot with, it takes a long time to make editions, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so something that started happening is pre-sales. That started happening definitely in the tiki mug world. And it happened because what would happen, and it happened mostly with import mugs, like China mugs. So somebody would do a design, it's like a sketch, and say, here it is, but it takes like a year to get things from China. So they would they would sell it off of a sketch, and then a year later, all the mugs would show up. But they would pre-sell it. So they'd be like, all right, here's a sketch, and this is a $80 mug. And then, a year later, they'd all show up. So
were those showing up finished, or were they showing up bisque and then they would paint them and glaze them?
Oh, they're totally finished. They're totally
finished.
They're boxed and everything. They're good to go.
And sometimes, if you're lucky, you get weird ones that they didn't understand. Yeah. Like Andrew got one because he used to do that. My best friend Andrew did that with mugs, and he had ones that said "Pray Big" on the back. It had the Slytherin snake on it, and I about died.
That's fantastic. I sold those for a fortune.
I know, he had like 4 of them, and I took all of them.
That's fantastic.
He didn't grow up knowing anything about Christianity or anything, so he was like, I don't understand why this is funny. And I was like, Satan's a snake, Andrew.
Oh, that's great.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So pre-sale. So we decided, let's try the pre-sale model. So we did the pre-sale. It went okay. So like basically when we started doing pre-sale, I would sculpt it, I would mold it, I would cast one, I would dial in my glazes. I would have basically like a finished piece like this and then we'd say, all right, we'd be able to set an edition because I'd know how long it would take for me to glaze the piece and everything and what the materials would cost. And we would do a pre-sale. And we did that, but I didn't like it for a couple of reasons. One, I felt under the gun. All of a sudden, I feel like I am, I have to make all these mugs. It was a lot of pressure. I felt uncomfortable taking people's money and not giving them a mug immediately because it's a lot of money. I mean, these mugs are not inexpensive. And then the other thing that would happen is we would run into problems, especially post-COVID, where a glaze would get discontinued or you can't get plaster anymore. And so you have to push the date back of delivery. And I would feel awful. It just would be too much. So we switched to, it was Denise's idea. She's brilliant. She came up with, well, first we did it for this laser cast piece, but like for this, we did a hunting license. So we have these hunting licenses.
Those are
so
awesome.
what we did is if you want to get the mug on the day of the license registration is you go to our website and we would only offer up, so this edition is for 350. So we offered up 400 hunting licenses and they cost nothing. So you go up, but there's only 400 of them on our website. You get it. And that basically gives us a pool of 400 people that have said, I will pay that much for the mug when my mug is ready. So what we do then is we cast up a couple of kiln loads, and then we will invoice those people as their mug enters production. So we know that we can safely, we have the glaze, we have all the materials to do these few kiln loads. We invoice those people, they send us. And so we work our way through the edition slowly like that. And I feel it's fair in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't want to hang on to people's money forever. It's not fair. It's their money. Let them keep their money.
Right.
And this way, if a glaze changes, and this actually happened on a previous edition, if a glaze changes mid-edition, I can take new photos, let everyone who has a hunting license, hey, this is the thing, and they can choose whether or not to buy it. And then we release more, which a lot of people get frustrated by, that we do 400 licenses for 350 mugs. So if you have a license, you're not guaranteed to get the mug, but that's because a lot of people will, 1, cancel, they won't want it once they get it. 2, they will fill out the forms wrong, or 3, they will cheat to get more mugs and they won't follow the rules. Like they'll, we always, it's 1 per person per address, but people will really bend the rules to get around that. So those will get thrown out too. So yeah, so that's our new pricing thing, and it's worked pretty well. it definitely makes me feel better. It lets me sleep better because I don't feel that.
Are you still
pressure.
auctioning anything, or is that kind of as needed or limited
No, we
edition?
do auction stuff. I definitely do like using, although, man, that's a crazy story. So I do auction my glaze testers. Like this is a glaze tester. This is a AP3. So I do usually, when I do an edition, I'll cast up like 5 of them and I'll test glazes with those. And so those will be auctioned because they're usually one of a kind. And then if I have any glaze testers left at the end of an edition that I don't use, I'll let them sit on the shelf for a couple of years and then I'll glaze it and offer that up. And those do really well. But I had a crazy thing happen during COVID where I was getting a lot of malicious attacks on eBay. It was awful. And it was community wide. A lot of artists that I know in this that make mugs were getting false bids. And so I worked forever on this set of these monkey skull cups. I absolutely love them. And somebody drove up the bidding like crazy. And I was looking at and I'm like, this doesn't look real. And sure enough, it wasn't real. And then that same person did it on like 3 subsequent auctions that I did. And so it was maddening because I would block the false bidder and they would make a new account and bid before I could even, like they just could make more new accounts faster than I could block them. So they ruined all those auctions. And then eBay, I'm touching the thing.
And then it looks bad on you, right? Because it's like,
well, the thing, one, yeah, it looks bad on me, and then 2, eBay wouldn't do anything about it. They don't care.
Yeah.
They wouldn't, like, I kept saying like this guy's faking it, and they wouldn't. They say, well, we don't comment on our security features. We won't do anything like that. But they would not. That auction item is tied up for 2 weeks until it takes for them to say, oh, you're right, he didn't pay you. So I couldn't resell that piece. So I had like a month of income I had tied into these 12 pieces that I couldn't sell because they were all locked up in these. It was a nightmare. Anyways, long story short, I don't use eBay anymore. I sell everything on, I just do an auction on Facebook. So I'll post the thing on Facebook and I'll say, if you only respond to this picture with a bid. And I do it on Facebook because I can kind of see the person, like, Facebook. I mean, it's sure there's ways around it, but I can kind of tell if this person's a real person or not by looking at their profile. And that's worked really well. So I still do auctions in that way, but I will not go back to eBay. I did a lot of research on that one. And I guess that when eBay, they used to have a policy where as a seller, because I was selling on eBay for years, where you could say that people already had to have a successful purchase before they could bid on your auction. In other words, they had to like verify that they bought something on eBay before and it went out well. They turned that off. That feature's gone. So now that's gone, I can't vet my bidders. And so, yeah, the same person could just keep making that. And he did it to like 4 or 5 other artists that I know. He did it to tiki bars that were doing charity auctions. He went on their things and he just destroyed all of their auctions. It's really weird. I don't understand why people do that, but yeah.
Wow. Are there people that resell your stuff too? Like they go on, they resell your own work?
Yeah, there's
they buy it.
I will not comment on Denise's anti-flipper procedures. Denise does all the shipping, but she definitely can't stand flippers. And she does work very hard to make sure that they don't resell. I don't care about people. If I'm selling a mug, it's your mug. You got it. That's totally fine with me. You can buy my mug today and sell it tomorrow. That's totally fine. I mean, that's what art is. People use it as investment. I can't go against that. But it drives me crazy when people will have all of their relatives, all these people buy a mug to skirt that thing, and then I'll see them all on eBay the next day. That drives me up the wall because there's a lot of people that genuinely want one of the pieces. You know what I mean? So yeah, that drives me crazy. Crazy. Yeah. It's weird. Collectors are weird. I mean, I'm a collector. I know us collector people can get pretty bananas sometimes, but yeah. But thankfully, Denise deals with that. I don't see that end of it.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that because I've always said like, especially people in person, they're like, well, what if I just threw this on the floor? And I'm like, do it.
Yeah.
I don't care as long as you paid me the money.
With it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I feel too. It's your mug, but like I said, I'm selling an a set edition, and I have rules. It's one per person. I don't want to sell. I don't want one person to buy. I mean, one person go and buy my whole edition and then resell it. That would be awful. Yeah, it's just like kind of scalpers for tickets and things like that. I just think it gets into a really weird moral gray area.
And I heard you mention like you had sort of iffy feelings about it when the bars would make significantly more money, where it's like, I feel like I trusted that they wouldn't do that, and then it's it's just kind of iffy. It makes you uneasy.
It's I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I should. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to sound greedy, but like I want the money. I just read. I got this screen printing book. I've been dabbling in screen printing, and they were interviewing an artist in the back, and he's like, I hate how artists are hesitant to say that I'm in this for money. He's like, of course you're in it for money. We all need money, and it's like it's magical if you can find something that you like to do that also brings you money. And so he's like, don't punish yourself for wanting more money. It's not evil. I don't know where I'm going there. I understand why the bar did. I understand why they did what they did, and like I said, they came back in the end and they're like, we realized it was a little insane.
And I mean, the creations are all yours from like you come up with. I don't know what the inspiration is for them, but like they are unique creations that you had to sculpt.
Right.
One of one.
And I will say and even when we do bar mugs, I still retain all the copyright on those mugs. I file copyright for everything we make. And I enter a license with them, like a copyright license agreement, where they can sell this piece but it's still my piece. They can't go on and just make a copy of that mug. You know what I mean? They don't own it. I'm pretty meticulous about that because of some crazy things that have happened in this industry in the past.
Is that fairly easy to do? Like, are you copywriting the mold and the form, or is it?
Oh my God! It is the easiest thing in the world to do. Everyone should be copywriting. Oh God, yeah. So I can tell you. Well, it has to be a distinct thing. So it has to be like, okay. So a few years back, a bar opened up in a state that I will not mention, and they launched with a whole line of barware that was the exact copy of like 4 or 5 different other artists' work. And the bar owner just basically contacted, at any rate, they claimed that there was never any intent to copy. They just thought that those were generic forms. At any rate, at that point, I'm like, wow, I really should be defending myself. So I contacted another mug maker that I really respect, that I know has had also issues with this, and says, oh, let me give you my lawyer. And so I got a lawyer. I felt like, I'm a grown up now. So I have a copyright lawyer, which sounds very fancy, but it just means that I gave him like $200 and I'm on his retainer now. But he answered all my copyright questions, and it was incredible. For example, I did a mug. I don't know if I have one up here. I don't think I do. It was the hornbill. So it's a hornbill skull. It's a bird, so it's the skull, but you can drink out of it.
Right.
And another company started making pins of the same design, like pins that you can wear. And I talked to my lawyer. I'm like, can I go after this person? And he said, did you file a copyright on it? I said, I did. And he said, you absolutely could shut them down. I thought that if I made a copyright that it was only for the mug, but it's for anything like a picture of your mug. People can't draw your mug. So anyways, this is how it works. You take photos of your piece that is finished. Oh, there you go. That's the hornbill. Yes. So you take photos of it and you just go to, I think it's copyright.gov, and you submit it. And it costs, I think, like $60, something like that. I can't remember the cost, because if you submit multiple ones, you get a discount. And then that's it. And then you have to wait. It takes several months for them to get back to you. And then you get an official license, certified letter from the government saying that is a copyrighted thing. Now, everything is copyright. Copyright is implicit in the US, meaning if you made it, someone can't copy it. But you have to prove it in court if it's not registered. If you have registered copyright, that means that you have established that I made this thing. You don't have to prove it in court. If it goes to court, and you say, here is my registration, the person that wrote copyright has to pay all legal fees, because it's registered. So, yeah.
Have you shut anybody down?
I never have. I've been really lucky with that I haven't, thank God, had to. But I definitely am okay if I have to. Everything that we've made, we file meticulously on, because it's it used to be something that seems so scary to me, but it's really easy to do. The first time you fill out the form, it takes forever because it seems like it's like a website that was made in 1998. So you have to click through a million things and it loads slowly. But once you do it once, it gets pretty easy to remember how to do it. And then,
Okay.
And it has to be something that's like I tried to do a copyright on, there's a thing called Tiki Bob. It's the first tiki mug ever made, and it's kind of a ubiquitous thing. So I made this laser cut face thing that swaps out, and I submitted that for copyright, and they refused it. They said, you can't copyright expressions. That's too generic. So that was shut down. That's the only copyright I ever had kicked back by the Copyright Office. Everything else they've been pretty good about. Yeah.
Wow. And you mentioned the Tiki Bob. That was the very first time I started following you, because I was scrolling back and I was like, when did I start seeing his work? And it was the Tiki Bob mug, the Tiki Bob post, I think is what it.
Pure Post Bob. Yeah, I got that over here.
That was the first. I think it was 2019. That was the first time I stumbled upon you and started following you. So. Yeah, because it had the nice.
Yeah, so that's the Bob face. Yeah, it's the. So I did it as a Pure Post. So this is an example. It's a big mug. This thing holds you could put a super big gulp in here and be fine. Oh 2019. Yeah, wow. It's funny. 2019. We were pretty new in the studio here, and we struggled to sell this. It was interesting. It's weird. Like I said, tiki ebbs and flows, and at that time it was expensive. This is an expensive mug because it's gigantic. This rope, I don't know if you can see it. Of course you can't because you're listening to it on the podcast. But there's rope that goes around this thing, and so after every casting, I went in and candid all the rope on there. Denise went nuts glazing it. Every single one of these is different. She did a different color starfish and crab on every single one of these. So they were cool, super cool.
So how much did you sell those for?
I think that we sold these for $150. And at the time that was are they insane?
Right. Yeah.
And we had them in that one. We're not going to set an edition size. It's however many we sell, and we'll have the purchasing window open for 10 days, and how many whether we sell, that's what we sell. And so we opened it up and nobody bought any. I'm like, oh God. So we extended the thing. But then as soon as we started shipping them, it blew up on the internet, and everyone was like, can I get one? I'm like, well, we've already closed the edition. It's already too late. And so, we don't sell that anyway like that anymore. That was a mistake. we thought we were being clever.
Live and learn. I guess I guess in your area that you're in, the collector, the edition number and stuff is important for whoever's going to buy it.
And it's important to me too. I am probably ridiculously meticulous about edition, not compromising an edition. When a mold is done, I destroy all my molds. When I worked in the special effects industry, people would sift through your trash trying to find stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's huge resale value on the film used props and stuff like that. So, I remember the mold guy in our mold department was like, you got to treat a mold like a gun. Anybody can shoot that thing. So, so it's even if I take molds, when I'm done with molds and I take them to the landfill, I smash all the molds because anybody can just find your mold and start casting with it. I'm crazy about that. And I want people to know.
You should bury a mold somewhere. Like
a time capsule?
Yes, a time capsule mold that you just bury in your lawn. And then when you sell the house, you're like, here's a treasure map.
Yeah.
This is a whole thing. Come up with
some graphics for that.
Well, that's who is it? It's Mitchell Spain, the ceramic artist. He has a pond in his property, and he throws all of his molds into his pond when they're done. So there's this
oh really
low island forming. Eventually I'm like, it's going to break the surface. This mold island, a volcano growing up out of this pond. But
no,
that's
you
a cool
should
idea.
Definitely. I think that needs to happen. Just one of them.
Maybe it's a skull. It's a skull mug. It's a skull.
To really frighten somebody.
Yeah.
Well, I have thought of taking. I have a ton of when a mug doesn't work out or whatever. I'm do I just put them out in the woods? Because there's just put it out there. Let it a tree grow around it or something like that. I just finished.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, go on.
No.
You just finished what?
I did this. So you asked. So we were talking about vending and my fear of vending. The thing that we did that I am my current jam for events is I learned this by studying people that are better than me. So we would go to these Tiki events, and there's this artist Shag. Are you familiar with Shag? He's an illustrator. He's pretty massive in the Tiki, and like he's probably like at the top of the pyramid. But I went to a symposium of his, so he did a talk for like an hour, and you got to hang out with Shag. And then after the talk, he just at the end he's like, "Oh, by the way, I brought a limited edition screen print that I've only made 100 of just for this event. You can see me out back and get that print." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's brilliant." You get the one-on-one time with Shag, and then he's vending just for like 20 minutes, and it's over.
Yes.
So that was like, well, let's try this out. So we did this at TikiCon. I sculpted a pendant special for the event. I did a symposium on how slip casting works and I used this pendant as the example. So I did like the whole process of making this pendant. And at the end, here's the pendant if you want to get it. Funny thing is, I made them out of porcelain, and that was my first time with porcelain. Ooh, porcelain is finicky. It's a finicky creature. So I had to make 100 pendants, and I probably made 250 pendants. So I had a whole bunch of bad ones. So I have this fountain outside. So I've just lined all the fountain with all the bad pendants. They look super cool. I'm looking at them out there right now. They look super cool.
Nice.
So yeah. So now I get to watch. Okay.
I looked up Shag. Yeah, we've been there. We went to his store.
Oh, you went to the Shag store? Yeah. In Palm Springs. Yeah. I idolize him both as an artist and as a business person. He's very clever with the way that he does stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. Becca, you were going to ask something. What were you going to ask him?
I was going to ask Henrik.
Yes.
What his favorite thing about his L&L kiln is.
Oh, okay.
Or the three.
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, well, I'll tell you why I bought the kiln. I can talk about L&L kilns forever. So I was looking.
We have like kilns. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. I'll go quick. Best things about L&L kilns. One, and probably most foremost, is that element holder, the ceramic element holder that cradles the elements. Because I was teaching ceramics in high school when I bought the kiln. I knew nothing about ceramics, but I do know that kiln was trashed. And they had bought that kiln when I started. That was not an L&L kiln. And it was already like just 2 years in, it was looking awful because the elements were like sawing their way into the kiln body, as they expand and contract. So I did a bunch of research. L&L had the thing, so I got that. Other thing I love about it is I splurged for the Genesis controller. Oh my God. So amazing. I'm in the house. The house is set from the studio. I can check my firings on my phone. Magic. And I know other kilns do that, but L&L is the first to do that in my mind, and love it. So I love those things about and then I know you talk about it in the ad, the thermocouple cover, but it's incredible. And one thing that I don't know if people talk about it is the peephole plugs are so good.
They're so good.
They don't fall out.
They're incredible. It's like an airtight thump. You know what I mean? Like, why doesn't every kiln have these? So yeah. And also, they're the nicest people. They really helped me setting up my kiln. I've set up kilns very far from where L&L actually is, in Hawaii, and then here in Oregon. They have a kiln rep over in Bend, which is very far from here. It's several hours away. But he's been incredibly nice to me. He actually is the same guy that helped me when I was living in Hawaii.
I think he's the same guy that I talked to, Rob Beatty.
Yeah. He's the best. Yeah.
I don't know why he's the guy, but he's the guy.
Yeah. These things are falling out of my ears. I should have not used these earplugs. No, I love the L&L kiln. I took mine from Hawaii to here. And then I eventually was like, you know what? I'm going to get a bigger kiln. So I bought 2 bigger ones, sold that other one, which still looked fantastic, by the way, after I've been using it for 6 years or something like that. And that is now in LA firing stuff. And then I bought one of the itty bitty doll kilns, and I love that thing to death for doing test firings. Yeah. The only regret that I have with the L&L is now I guess they make them with the solid state or the relays or solid state relays. Are you familiar with this? Like if you get
I don't know, because I know that my Scut Firebox has a solid state relay, and I was talking to Dimitri about that at Antica, and I don't know if they do or not.
They do, because a friend of mine just bought one, and I was like, what? So I called up Rob, and I'm like, hey, can I get these solid state? He's like, no, you can't. You can't for your kiln. It's like a full, I have to replace the whole box. He's like, when you get it, it's like a whole different box construction.
Yeah.
It has these like heat vents on it. But yeah, it doesn't do all that clicky clacky stuff. The relays last, I guess, forever. But no, they're incredible kilns. Incredible kilns.
Nice.
I wonder when they started doing that. I wonder if I was the person that told them about it.
Maybe it could be. I think it's relatively new, because I only heard about it like within the last 6 months or a year, maybe. Yeah.
Interesting. I wasn't the person that told them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But those solid state relays, though, they cost a shit ton of money. I will say that it's expensive to replace them.
Yeah. But I thought you never had to replace them. Wasn't that the deal? Like, isn't it forever?
I don't know.
Okay.
Is that kind of like getting the fancy thermocouple, the thermocouple S versus the K or something, where they're super expensive and the lights?
Or it's like when
so long.
it's like when everyone's like, oh no, we're switching to LED lights, and you'll never have to replace them, except for you're gonna have to replace them.
When you do.
Yeah. No, I love the L&L
I'm
kilns.
like, where do you find your L&L kilns, Henrik?
Well, I got mine at is it? Okay, wait, I don't get this wrong. I think it's hotkilns.com. Is it hotkilns.com?
That's right.
It's hot.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I bought mine. Yep, I got them all online. Sight unseen. I got mine sight unseen. I'd never seen an L&L kiln. I think I was the first person in Hawaii to get one when I got one, and I swear I've sold so many of their kilns. like you need to give me a free kiln. Who is it that has? Okay, this is not an L&L. I don't know what kind of kiln he has. Tim, I'm gonna mispronounce his last name.
Tim Kowalczyk has an Amoco kiln, and he got it for free because he put a tattoo on himself of an Amoco kiln.
I know. I'm like, I feel that I should get an L&L kiln after selling.
You got to get a tattoo.
I don't. I know. No, I want only the best for L&L. In fact, I'm going to be doing I do these Tiki Technical Tuesday YouTube things, and the episode after the one that I'm going to be releasing next is all about my kilns and how much I love them. Yeah.
Nice.
I wonder if you or Tim, like you and Tim C, should go edit to see who gets like the free kiln, because you guys have both probably sold a fair amount.
Yeah. He came and visited. He was at the studio once. I'm sure you have. It's such a great kiln. I mean, I do feel, I say it as a joke, but when I tell people that I do ceramics, and they literally go like, oh, how do you like your scut? Like it is the de facto. It's like if you move to Oregon, you say do you ceramics, it's just like the scut truck pulls up to your house automatically. But I feel like such a rebel for not having one out here. It's really weird. I almost feel hesitant to say it because, like, you know, I go to Georgie Ceramics and they're like, you know, Scott. I'm like, I don't. I mean, they're very nice, I'm sure, but I don't.
Yeah, no, they. I think that the biggest thing that we have is that there's really not a bad kiln company out there. We just like L&L's better.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
and they're gracious to sponsor us, so we are very appreciative.
Sponsor us.
Yeah, I was actually really happy when they started sponsoring you guys. I'm like, okay, cool. I love them.
Yeah, and like it helps that Ryan has two. I don't have an L&L kiln. Eventually I will, but at this time I have a Konar and it is very new, and so
I think you got it the two NCCAs before.
Okay, yeah.
This past one. Very, very new.
When we moved here, that's when the Portland NCCA was happening, and L&L had their new square one. They had like a square kiln with the front door opening, and I was all about that one. I'm like, I want that one just so I don't have to bend over to load stuff into the kiln. That drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And they actually said, I gotta say, they like, I don't know if you want to put this on. They're like, don't get this yet. They're like, give us a little bit of time. We're still figuring out the even distribution of heat in it. So they discouraged me from getting that one at that time. I guess they've got it working now. But now I'm like, I can't get a square kiln because all my kiln shelves are octagonal. So
I'm
right.
Advancer ones now.
Yeah, so it's like I'm in the Advancer thing. I can't. That's it.
You're back a little bit with the Advancers, and nice.
Well, I think it shows that it's a good company because they said don't get it yet.
Yeah, you know? No, I totally respected them for that. Yeah. Yeah, and that's at that same show, Advancer did the same thing. I was like drooling over the Advancer stuff, and at that time, Advancer made stilts too. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
No.
So they made the shelves that we all know and love, but they also made stilts out of the same stuff. And I was like, ooh, how much do those cost? He's like, well, we don't really have a price list for that, because he's like, only universities and stuff like that really buy them. And I'm like, well, what if I want to get one? He's like, you don't want to get these. These aren't for you. And I
so
was
basically,
like,
the Glaze Eraser.
Yeah, but it's not the glaze. It's made out of the same stuff. It's not the Glaze Eraser is made out of like an asteroid from space. Like it looks so cool when you look at that thing.
Carbide kind of thing.
But no, the stilts are made out of the carbon nitrate bonded. I don't know.
Yeah, they are.
I am not a chemist, but the stilts are made out of that. And I was like, okay, cool. You don't have a price list for it, but it was neat to see them all. And then just like a year ago, I'm like, I sometimes struggle with my stilts sticking to my to the shelves. It drives me nuts, especially when I pick up the Advancer shelves. Are so light, which is great. I'll pick them up not knowing that there's a huge stilt stuck on the bottom of it, and it'll fall and it can damage pieces. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have to do like this careful like wiggle jiggle before I pick up, and then I like kind of like feel around the edge to make sure, are we all released? Okay. So I was like, I bet you if I bought one of their super space stilts, I wouldn't have that problem. So I called him up and he's like, oh, we don't even make those anymore. Because he's like, nobody bought them. I'm like, well, you never tried to sell them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I do? Because same about this, the kiln shelves is I pick it up and drop it really quick.
Oh, really?
Before I take the shelf out. So I'll pick it up and I don't drop it, but I kind of like bang the stilts against the ground.
Okay. Yeah.
So that if they are stuck, they'll fall off. That's a good trick for that.
Do you use Advancer kiln shelves? Or?
No, but I've used my fair share because I used to have all Advancers.
Did you put kiln wash on the Advancer or no?
No, I put alumina on the Advancer. So
that's what I do now too.
So I didn't even know that. See, this is where I am not.
I have a dusting of alumina hydrate just so the when I use the underglazes they don't stick, but
right. So alumina hydrate is like it's sometimes used in stuff, but like you can put it in wax so that if you have a lid it won't stick, and it's kind of like cornstarch essentially for the kiln. And so what I do with the kiln shelves, and I imagine your kiln shelves were very much like mine in the sense that they're not wrecked. So what I did was I would take out the kiln shelf. I'd probably put them down, but before I put them into the kiln, I'd scrape them with the silicon carbide just to get the red scrapey thing. I'd scrape them with that, and then
make the loudest noise on earth.
Right. I know that it's soft and smooth, so I have a salt shaker with alumina. I sprinkle it and then I rub my hand on it, and that would 10 out of 10.
That's what I do.
No plucking, no nothing. And that way they just kind of like come off. And it's not like, obviously if you have something that spills and gets on, it's not that. It's just that porcelain does pluck on on those shells, and you can get plucking and stuff coming off on it. Yeah. And you could put a little bit of alumina on your posts too if you wanted to.
I'm very
happy. Just want to make sure it doesn't like fall off the posts into mugs or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I think I would probably like mix alumina with water and then like spritz it on the post or something so it wasn't dusty.
Is alumina hydrate like ultra toxic? Do I need to worry?
You shouldn't inhale it because it's
powder,
but
it's like every other chemical.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah.
But like the dusting, like I have it on my shelves, but when I take the shelves out and I sit them on their side, it doesn't just like all the dust just falls on the ground. It's so light that
it's very light. You'll notice a difference.
I want to say it like bakes on, but it doesn't really bake on. It's just kind of like a thin coat, so that it's a nice layer between.
This is why I'm here.
Shelf and
yeah, and you can feel it. You can feel the difference. Like if you have it like dusted and then you go off, like with your bare hand and you go to another part, you're like, oh, that's not right.
That's interesting. So I did this piece, this crab claw thing. and the bottoms were not glazed. Like,
it's one of those where you have to hold the whole thing while you drink it until you're done.
Yes,
oh,
exactly.
Yeah, I love those ones. Yeah.
So, but the weird thing is so this is what was on the kiln floor like this. So it's a thin edge, and it's not really structurally sound. And I was getting issues where, and it's a big mug, it's heavy, so there's a lot of weight on that.
Yeah.
I was getting issues where I think that as the clay was shrinking during firing, it was maybe just getting a little tacked onto the, and it was cracking, and it was driving me nuts. Or it would do the plucking thing, and I would pick it up like yay, and I bump like this piece would come off.
Right.
Oh god.
Yeah, aluminum.
So I just did a little sprinkle of dull sand in there, like
same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was like little ball bearings. That was my theory, and it worked. But aluminum, I'm excited about this, especially for porcelain pendants, because that was not fun.
Oh, for sure. And for everybody that doesn't have advancers, that works just as well on regular kiln shelves too. Okay. Just so you know.
Yeah, I used to do that on the standard kiln washed shelves because I always had the mugs with the underglaze on the bottom, just flat. So I would make little piles that were the size of the bottom of a mug, and I would just leave that shelf vertical and just always take it out and leave it upright, so I could just put it back in there and put the mug in the exact same spot on the little pile of alumina.
Yeah.
So it didn't stick. But
I feel since I did the shout out for L&L, I should also shout out for the advancer shelves. Like, I felt so guilty buying those things because they cost so much money. But oh my God, they're amazing.
They are.
I can't recommend them enough. For me, they're amazing because they give you so much more room in your kiln, for one. Like I actually have like this like foam core model at the inside of my kiln, so I can, when I'm sculpting things, I can figure out how many I could stack in my kiln when I'm firing. And the difference, it sounds silly, but getting that extra like 1.5 inch difference or more, depending on how many stacks you're doing, can add up significantly for size of your mug. So I can't, I love it, Dancer. I love it.
Malcolm is the main guy at Advancer, and I've talked a lot with him just because I had a kiln shelf that broke. He was so lovely. He's so lovely. You know, they're very, very responsive and super wonderful.
Yeah. I recently just got a tiny little one for my doll kiln.
I have small ones for my little kiln too. I have
the
3
cutest
of them.
little thing. Yeah.
Oh my God, mine are 6.5 inches, and they're so stinking cute.
Yeah. I had I had this one mug that I did. It was the Mini Moby. It's like a whale. It's like it's Moby Dick, and it has all these tattoos on it. And so the tattoos are all decals. They're all luster decals. And I do that, 3 firings, the bisque firing, the glaze firing, the luster one. And this was one of those that the mold is gone. It's been an AP casting that I just had bisqued on the shelf for like 3 years now. I'm like, I'm going to finally do it. I'm going to commit. I've got a handful of the decals left. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this in a different color than I've ever done it. So I sprayed the whole thing, and I did it like in a satin black. I was so excited about it. It was kind of late in the afternoon. I put it in the kiln, went to bed, and I woke up the next morning. I opened my eyes, and I went, I didn't wipe the bottom of the mug. And I was like, my heart stopped. I realized, and then I'm like, oh, it's okay. I had to fire it in the big kiln with the advancer shelves. It's okay. Like, I was so relieved that because if I had put it in the doll kiln, I don't have the shelves in there. I mean, I probably could have ground it all off, but there's
only that one left. So.
That was the only one. Like, I have no more molds or anything. So yeah, I mean, I was able, it just came right off the advancer shelf, like boop, and it was okay. And I had to sand a lot, but it was okay.
Yeah.
But that was, I totally woke up. It was the very first thing in my head, like, I didn't wipe the bottom. Like, it was, that's my advancer plug.
Nice. I had a question. So I reached out to Kurt Hammerly before this and was like, hey, I'm going to talk with Henrik. Do you have any questions? So he had a question.
I like that guy. Oh my God.
And he was asking, so when you sit down to design a new form, do you think about how many mold parts it will be as you design it, or do you try to keep that out of your head until the design's complete?
That's a great question. It depends on if it's a client mug or not. So if we're doing a mug for a bar, we will usually, that will be a huge part of it. Like for example, for TikiCon, we would do the event mug for TikiCon, it's this Portland Tiki event. I had a rule that it was a 3-piece mold only. So like front, back, and then a bottom plug. And so whatever design we did for that would have to be done with just 3 pieces. And that was because of the budget that they had, and also the turnaround and the size that they would need. That was kind of the parameters I put on that. For bars, I will do, like, when I pitch for a bar, I'll do like an array of designs. And if I'm doing a really crazy illustration, I will say this is complicated and it will cost more money. So I definitely do think about mold pieces when I am designing things.
Because that's seaming, right? I mean, that's seaming time when you, besides the complexity of the knowledge it takes to actually execute a mold.
I will say that I am not afraid of making a lot of pieces on a mold. I'm looking at some pieces that I did now. I will happily put more pieces into a mold if it lets me put a seam in a better spot for seaming, if that makes sense. Like, I'll add more pieces, no problem, if I can bury the seam on an easy to clean spot. Like on Pure Post Bob, instead of having a seam run down through the nose, I'll break it so that I can have a seam around this face line and not have to clean up an area. You know what I mean? I definitely think about seams a lot.
It's more, I feel like you're saying, like, you think about seams more than you think about pieces.
Exactly. So if you have to sink a ton of time into making a mold, that's fine, because you only have to do it one time, but you have to seam every single casting. So if it is a tricky to hide seam or something like that, like if you're like, well, I can get away with making just a 2-piece mold on this, but to do that, you're going to put the seam right through the center of the face or something like that, where on every casting, I'm going to have to spend forever cleaning that seam line. I'd much rather do a 4-piece mold where I put the seam around, like, the hairline of this thing or whatever, where it's a really easy place to put, or it's on the corner or an edge. Yeah, because that is the biggest time sink for sure, is cleaning up castings. I'm happy to invest a insane amount of time into mold making, because I know that all of that time you put in for there will pay off every day you cast with it. I learned the hard way that if you make a mistake on a mold and don't fix it, just because you're like, it's okay, I'll deal with it, you're going to deal with that every single casting, you know what I mean? And you'll have to see it every time, like, oh man, why didn't I clean that up? And you'll fix that little thing on every casting every day, you know?
Have you had to redo molds? So it's like maybe you had a 5-part, you redid it to like a 7-part or something like that?
I've had some epic mold disasters. One, I'm not going to blame Kurt for this, but he was doing urethane molds. I'm like, ooh, let me try some urethane molds. This stuff is way cheaper than silicone. I'll try that out. And it worked great. I did some giant pieces. I don't have them up there with the urethane, and it worked out incredible, because it would have been like, the mug was huge. It was this massive thing. So I saved a fortune on silicone with that. And then I did this tiny one, this little squid. It was so tiny. Little squid. So I did this guy.
Aww.
And I love it. This is one of my favorite. It's called the Ika Ika. It's Ika is Japanese for squid. And my whole goal with this was price point. I was like, I want to do a simple low price point mug, small. This is just a 3-piece mold, front, back, the bottom plug. You know what I mean? Like, this will be great. And I did it out of urethane, and there was a moisture reaction with the urethane and my master sculpt, and it was destroyed. The sculpture was destroyed, and the mold got compromised. So there was a bunch of, like, chunky nut stuff happening, like, just so every single one of these castings I had to go through and re-smooth and re-sculpt this pattern.
Oh no.
Yeah. And that is why we didn't make that many of these mugs, even though I love them to death.
So the technical side of this that I'm quite not understanding is the urethane. You have the form that's a physical, like, object, and then you put something on it so that when you pour urethane in it to make the mold of it, it doesn't stick to it, but also doesn't deform it.
So the process that I do is I will sculpt the master out of, like, a modeling clay. Then I'll make a plaster mold off of that master, and it'll be a multi-piece plaster mold. And that I consider my master mold. And I could go straight to slip casting with that mold if I wanted to. But if I had dropped that mold or something happened to that mold, that's it. It's gone forever. And also slip casting, you can only get so many pulls out of a mold before it starts to break down. and it's less than you'd think. Like 20 to 25 castings for some of these more complicated things. And I feel that I'm putting more time into cleaning up the casting than I would be if I just cast a fresh, clean mold. So they're consumables. So anyway, so I have that master mold. I want to make a mold of that mold so I can cast more molds. And so I will make a silicone mold of that plaster mold. This is going to be really hard for people to follow.
So you have the plaster mold sitting there, and then you have to pour silicone to fill. You
make a silicone block mold of it. Yep. And then I can cast as many plaster molds after that as I want out of that silicone. So what Kurt was doing was he was using urethane to do the master. It's a flexible material instead of silicone. It's much less expensive. And also I was doing some work with mud sharks here in Portland. Eutectic Gallery, they have like a company with the mud sharks, and they do a lot of porcelain production slip casting. So, and I saw them like, oh, they use urethane too. I'll give that a go. Fun thing about urethane, well, a couple things. One is it's the same stuff that Gorilla Glue is made out of. It's a glue. It's an adhesive. It is extremely sticky. So if you do not release the daylights out of whatever you're going to make a mold out of, it's permanent. You'll never get it off. And two, just like Gorilla Glue, it's moisture inhibited. You can't use it with water. So I thought that my plaster mold was dry enough and that I had enough coats of like I used a crystal clear acrylic as a moisture barrier, but it wasn't sealed. Mold is not dry enough. There's not enough of a barrier. So the moisture kept the urethane from curing. So when I opened the mold, it's like, oh, this looked great. But then there were like these dots that were still icky goo that never set. And so
it was stuck on there and you couldn't get it off. So when you made a plaster mold of that form, it always included a little chunk and stuff.
All these gooey bits that I had to go back and clean up. Yeah. It was awful. It was awful. So it spooked me that I haven't gone back to urethane since then. But
you explained that very well.
Thanks. It's so complicated. I was talking about this, and another artist I know, he's like, oh, it's like mold making inception. It's a mold of a mold of a mold. Like it just keeps on going.
Yeah. I have a question. How many? I know that you only make one. Okay. I know you make the master mold, and then how many plaster molds do you make of that mold for let's say we'll just do an even 300. Like you're making 300 pieces. How many molds do you make?
Okay, perfect question. So it comes down to how many I think I can handle in a day. I could. And so I have a slip table behind me, which you would see if it wasn't blurred. So between Denise and myself in the morning, I'm comfortable casting 10 to 12 mugs a day. That's kind of my jam, depending on the complexity. And it gets more complicated. For example, the crab claw, this is 2 molds. So I had 10 plus 10. So that was actually 20. So that's a bit of a shuffle. But that's kind of the zone of what I feel I can pour, demold, steam, and then reset for the next day of casting. So that's kind of what I make. Now, if the addition size is 300, like you said, I will actually end up probably making 20 molds because I'll cast 10. We'll get to halfway through that addition point at 150, and then I will probably cast a fresh set of 10 molds because I will only want to get 20 castings out of each mold before I.
Right.
I mean, I know I could go farther than that, and some artists think I'm crazy to get so few castings out of it. But as you mentioned earlier, our labor is the number one cost for us. And the older a mold gets, the surface gets pitted. You'll get some irregularities in the surface. So you'll just spend more time sponging or cleaning up each casting. And that time adds up exponentially, as the days go by. So for me, it is much easier to just get a fresh set of molds cast.
And they can dry quick enough overnight to cast them the very next day, or do you use those 10 to shuffle and you do them every other day?
They dry. It depends on the season for one. Now that we're getting into winter, I will cast usually. It depends on the mold, but we'll usually do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So Wednesday is a day off. I'll have a fan going on the molds for Wednesday, so I'll do 2-day blocks. Sometimes we'll switch to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday casting schedule, and then I glaze on the other days. It really depends on the mug. These zombie jugs are super complicated, and it's a giant mold, so I usually give them every other day we cast with them, and I'll put a fan on them overnight to help kind of dry them out. But I know artists that work in Vegas and they can cast twice a day, no problem, for all day, every day.
Right, because it's dry as shit out there.
Yeah. And I'm jealous. Sometimes I'm jealous of that, but also sometimes I'm glad it's not quite that dry.
And then the counter to that is, imagine how quickly you'd have to seam and you'd have to damp box.
Exactly. And even like his plaster sets so fast, like it's so hot there too. So he's like getting, even like his groundwater is warm. So like, like right off the bat, he's like, as soon as I get that plaster in the water, it's like, go, 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 go. So I'm glad that I have.
See, another reason Vegas should not exist.
Yeah.
I hate Vegas.
But I mean, like I look at, I know some other people that have studios in like Louisiana, and they have a whole elaborate like drying room for their, like with all these fans on them and everything. So I'm definitely not in that scenario. I think I'm pretty happy with the environment over here. In Hawaii, I would get mold on my molds, like living mold, not, you know what I mean? I get black mold all over them, which is gross. I mean, it wasn't the deadly kind of black mold, but it was, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I worked in a basement in Washington and had to have a dehumidifier on 24/7.
Yeah.
So I had a question about, so we've talked about, the mold making and the slip casting, like the consistency and ability to produce the same thing in mass. It's just like, that's a big draw for it. So
yeah.
Not having a core body of work that, is like carries all the time, not having that, is that kind of a choice for the business side of it, or is it a creative thing? Is it both? Something else?
How do you balance? A design that's always in the store kind of a thing?
Yeah, like the VanTiki originals, it's like always there.
So it's funny you say that, because we actually just did that because of what you're talking about. Like sometimes our store is always empty, and it's both a blessing and a curse. I'm very happy that, our things sell quickly. It's great. But then I always feel bad. Like you said, like, is there something that you can just have in the store? And also I do feel sadness when I put a lot into a design and the edition's over and it's gone. Like, that's it. Like I got to feel an incredible amount of pressure. Like I got to think of the next thing now. And sometimes that can be super daunting. I think it was Kurt actually that talked about this. The difference of when you're like, okay, I'm doing this professionally, is like, I can't wait for the idea to come to me. I've got to sit down and come up with an idea. And that can be really hard. I am so glad that I worked as a commercial artist for as long as I did, because I learned that, like, I can't, be like, oh, I'm an artist. That's not the time right now. The idea hasn't come to me. It's like, no, I've got to think of this by Tuesday, or we're not going to be able to pay our mortgage. So I got to have an idea. And that's a really good exercise to have. But to answer your question, we did just do a design for we call it it's a porcelain pounder mug, and that's going to be an open edition. I'm just going to make those things forever. Nice. And that being said, I don't have any in the store right now because they sold out, but I just have to cast some more. And so the way I'm doing that is I'm just putting a number on each bottom, like a serial number. So, so that's kind of cool. So that way, and so for that one, I spent forever on my silicone masters to make sure that those molds will last, until I'm gone. So I can cast as many plaster production molds as I need to out of them.
Okay. So are you just, do you just take a break for a few days to like cast a few, or do you always cast like a couple each day or something so that you kind of build up that stock slowly?
I kind of do that. So right now we are like, I've got a million zombie jugs to glaze. So I haven't cast any since like for a while. But once we get into the groove of it, what it is like, we'll do like Wednesdays as porcelain day, and I'll just cast, I have 5 molds of those. So I'll cast 5 of them on that. And then I'll just slowly build up for a month. At the end of the month, I'll put them all up on our store.
Okay. Do you change the color inside, or is that going to be the thing that you adjust with each edition?
I plan on playing with a lot of different things. Like right now I'm casting them in black porcelain, which looks super awesome.
Yeah, it looks like
I'm looking at it right now. It's cool.
Yeah, in fact, I did them out of black porcelain because I didn't know about this stuff called alumina. And so my underglaze was sticking to the bottom of the kiln. So when I would cast these pounder mugs before, I would end up with this like little white spot on the bottom.
No, I think black porcelain was the way to go anyway.
It looks so cool.
Yeah, they look awesome.
Yeah.
But
I don't think you could get the definition with underclays like that.
Yeah. So we're doing those, and I'm going to play with the color on the inside. I might play with some different colored porcelains. Yeah, I don't know. I figure like this, that whatever I want to do, because I don't have that pressure of like, well, I only have this many to make. Like, it's nice, I can make as many as I want. So that's kind of fun. Yeah.
And I mean, like you were saying earlier, you have also kind of diversified a little bit with, the library of libations, and, Denise does some different things. I saw she had some like rugs and things that you all were selling at the event. Do we still have, is he frozen for you, Becca?
I am so embarrassed. No, I touched my ear and it hung up again.
Oh, no.
Fun ear pod fact. If you touch this ear, I guess it hangs up. I don't know. I'm not going to touch that ear anymore. I am so embarrassed.
You could just
so nervous all week about being on this.
In.
I'm like, I got to look professional, and then
You can just put your other earphones in. It's fine.
No. I'm afraid to touch these now.
His face is just frozen right now, where he's just touching an ear, and that's it.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn your camera on and off.
Okay, I turned it back on. Am I back?
Oh.
Maybe it'll refresh.
It's so weird. I see all of you.
Well, that's fine. I mean, it might just come eventually. I was gonna say that I'm looking at your original VanTiki pounder mug from 2016.
Oh yeah. So I've done like 4 or 5 iterations of those. It's such a cool shape. It's
Is the one you have now, is it a rocker?
Yes, except it's cool because the porcelain slumped on the bottom, which is kind of neat. So I sculpted it completely round on the base, except you can't see what I'm doing. How do I make the camera so you can see me? This is so sad.
Oh, I think it might have refreshed. Something refreshed.
Can you see me now?
We're still waiting for you to come back.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
The shame.
No, it's
the shame I
totally
feel.
fine. It is absolutely fine. I've done way more shameful things on this podcast than you've done in the last 4 hours. So.
So weird. Okay.
Henrik, did you hear my question about the diversifying and?
Oh yeah.
Like the library of libations came about, and
yes. Okay, so that's super huge. So like as everyone does, we have bills, and we get scared with our mortgage and everything like that. And so we got to the point, and this is why I love that call that you had with your last Kurt one, where he's talking about having employees and expanding and all that stuff, because it's definitely something that we have thought of. We got to a point where like, all right, this is what we can make ourselves in clay. We kind of hit our max output. Like, what do we do? Do we hire somebody? Do we do something else? And I didn't want to hire somebody. I like making stuff out of clay. I want to do this as long as I can. I'm afraid hiring people did I come back?
You're back.
I'm back.
Yay!
I'm afraid hey everybody. I'm afraid if I hire people, then I will be managing people. I used to manage people on an animation team, and when I was doing that, I didn't get to do a lot of animating. So I want to do what we do. So we're always trying to think of ways that we can expand what we do. We got the laser to work with ceramics and do some stuff that we were doing in the studio, and we're like, man, maybe we can make other stuff with this and sell it. I mean, the laser is like a little robot that makes work for you. Now, I say this very cavalierly, as if Denise Denise runs the laser. She is the laser pro. I know nothing about the laser, and it does take a ton of work for her to set up and do all of that. But it is a great new media for us to explore and to make money with, and it's just fantastic. So it is a great bridge between projects. While I am coming up with a new mug design and making molds, we're not making any money. And sometimes that can be very difficult for us when we're doing client projects. And I have to kind of go dark, if you will, like I can't show what I'm working on. If I'm working on something secret, that can be really hard for us financially, because I can't post about things. I can't make stuff for us to put in our store. And then we have to like come back from that, after being quiet for like a week or a month, and then try to like get everyone's attention again. So the laser is a fantastic bridge for that. And it's been great. Denise just started doing rug tufting too, which is super fun. So she's spent the last 2 days making these insanely cool rugs in the studio, which it's funny. She got the tufting gun. I'm like, oh man, I want to play with that thing too. I haven't had any time to play with it. It's like, I'm kidding myself. I have to glaze all these mugs. But I'm super stoked that she's doing it. She is so good at it. Like now it's to the point she's so good where I'm afraid to go in there because I'm going to look like a kindergartner, like the tufting gun. Yeah. So she's doing incredible designs. And we have a bunch of other things that we're excited about, kind of just dipping our toes into. And those are all things that, one, it's exciting to learn something new and do something new and make something different. Like I've been doing screen printing. I love it. It's fun. It's just different. It's different than clay. I mean, we love clay. We all love clay, obviously. But sometimes it's fun to try different media. And then it is so financially soothing to not go on the feast and famine cycle that the mugs do for us, where like we sell a mug, we're doing great, okay, and then we finish that mug, and now we've got to make a new mug and then come up with a new design, and it's nice to have that buffer for sure.
Yeah, and the price is attainable too. It's something different. It's not like another mug, so it's another addition to home tiki bars, or just something that is fun and really cool. It's got a lot of color to it. It's got a lot of layers. It's just they're totally different. It's funny so cool. When we do things like this, it definitely, like, you have to take into consideration the, like, especially when it's something that hasn't been done before. It's like, well, you got to like educate people on it. Like, this is what this is, and you haven't seen one of these before, but it does this, and you can do it like that, and you can put that here, because people don't know. And so, for example, the Library of Libations, they're like these cocktail dioramas. The first few that we did not sell very well. It took us an incredible amount of time to sell through the editions. And Denise was super worried about it. She's like, no one's buying these things. I'm like, it's going to be okay. Just give people time to find them. People don't know what these are. And it's true. And now it's great. The editions sell out, and it's been great for us. But you always, like, whenever we do these new kind of things, we always have to remind ourselves that it takes time to educate people on the new thing. You know what I mean? People come to us for mugs primarily, and we have to remember that. So when we spring something weird new on them, we have to let them kind of absorb it or understand what it is. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Have you seen those at all, Becca? Do you know what I'm talking about? They're like acrylically cut, and then they're layered and stacked. So there's like different colors of acrylic.
I went to the website, but you're obviously sold out. So I went to the website, but
I can go grab one.
No, it's okay. And but it would be fun for you to so it's like so explain just one of them that you made.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh God, I'm going to touch this thing. Okay, we didn't hang up. Okay. So what they are, it's I love dioramas and like little shadow box like things, and so I'm like, and I love the history of the cocktails that we make. I think some cocktails, just the name to me is like a short story. It's evocative. It makes you think of something. Like my favorite cocktail name is the Missionary's Downfall, which just the name of the beverage is a short story. And so I thought, what would be cool if you could make this silhouette, like the picture frame is the silhouette of the cocktail glass, and inside of that is the diorama of whatever short story I think that the cocktail name is telling. So like the Jungle Bird, it is a Mai Tai glass shaped thing, and inside of it is a tropical jungle with a toucan sitting there. There you go. There's the toucan and the tropical jungle.
Okay.
Missionary's Downfall. I've got like an island with like a missionary standing on it, and in the foreground, sitting on a rock, is this absolutely beautiful mermaid. So those are fun. So we have a list of cocktails that we want to do, and we're working our way through the list, and it's fun. It's fun for us to come up with different. I love exploring how much depth and story I can tell. I think that there are 8 layers total that we do with the acrylic. And it's like, all right, what can we do with these 8 layers to get as much depth as possible? We did one for
here's
Nelson's
the Missionary's
Blood.
Downfall.
Oh yeah, it's the Missionary's Downfall. Yeah.
Oh wow.
You know what? I didn't realize it was they were all the shape of a mug first. I think I saw the hurricane one, and it was, and I was like, okay, but I didn't realize the one that was a tiki glass, the Mai Tai glass. And I was like, oh, that is a Mai Tai glass.
Yeah, and they're all to scale to the actual like cocktail glass too. which is kind of cool. The Nelson's Blood one is my favorite. That story is insane, where that cocktail came from. So Nelson, Admiral Nelson, he was like this British officer guy, and he was killed in the middle of a big naval battle, and he was like a hero. So they took his body and they put it, there it is. So there he is. So they put his body into a barrel of wine spirits, like high alcohol wine. And they put his body in a barrel and then took him back because they didn't want the body to go bad. They're like, we're not going to throw him away at sea. We want to bury him in, some fancy church or something in England. And legend has it that sailors drilled a hole in the bottom of the barrel and drank it dry during the whole, because it's booze. They want the booze. And that's called tapping the captain. Yeah. So
that's disgusting.
Yeah. So that's the name of it.
I would not drink. I don't know how desperate I would have to be to drink booze with a dead body in it.
I know, right? Yeah. But those have been super fun. We love doing those. Denise and I will usually go up to a cabin up in there's this incredible place called Camp Sherman out in the woods in Oregon, and we will go and we'll just have a design retreat. We'll go up there for like 4 days and just design and just draw all these concepts and ideas for the Library of Libations. They're fun to do.
Yeah, I have a personal question.
Yes. Which
it seems weird, but do you guys have kids?
We do not have kids. No kids. No, just us.
I was like, man, they do a lot of stuff. Like they must not have children. Okay.
No kids. No. My brother has kids, but we never had kids. No.
Hey, we're on the no kid train, so
yeah. It just wasn't for us. Yeah. It's
weird. I have a question while we're in Tiki. I feel like this might be a fun way to wrap it up because I'm into the Tiki stuff, and I was wondering, and there's a bunch of questions here because I was like, Rachel, what questions do you have? So how did you get introduced into, Tiki culture and, just the fascination with it?
So I didn't really know anything about it at all. I mean, I was born and raised in Hawaii. I was born in Waikiki, believe it or not. There used to be a hospital in Waikiki on the beach. There was a hospital. That's where I was born. I knew nothing about it. My dad was an ocean engineer in Hawaii, so I would always spend time at his office, which is right on the ocean. And my parents had moved to Hawaii right before I was born, and so they loved Hawaii, and we traveled everywhere in Hawaii. I mean, God, it was incredible. I feel very fortunate for that. I've been to all the islands many times and just sucked it all up. Because a lot of people that grow up in Hawaii don't get to do that. They almost never leave the side of the island they're on. So very fortunate in that. I remember two things that led to Tiki, to answer your question. One, in 5th grade, we went to Disneyland for the first time. And it was a big deal, like my first trip to the mainland. And we went to the Enchanted Tiki Room in Disneyland. And
obviously, why would you not?
But it was so weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's like if you're from Idaho and you go to Disneyland and there's the Enchanted Potato Room. Like, you wouldn't expect. I was like, people care about this? Like, it was so weird to see something that celebrates Polynesia not in Polynesia. I didn't think anyone cared. I thought that my life was normal. Yeah. I didn't understand that Hawaii was special in any way, So that was weird for me. And then, oh God, I'm going to touch my ear. Okay. And then,
okay, just touch the outsides right here and push them.
I'm afraid to touch this thing.
Don't worry, you're fine.
Okay.
There you go.
Jeez.
Okay. Because the sensors are on the sides here.
Okay. Next time I'm going to practice. So that was my first little foray of this is weird. And then when I was an animation guy, my animation team, this is in 2000, I believe. They're like, hey, we're going to go to a concert tonight in Waikiki. Do you want to come? And I'm like, what kind of concert is it? And he's like, it's an Exotica concert. I was like, oh, what does that mean? Is like a naked concert? What is this concert? He's like, no, you're going to love it. It's going to be awesome. It's a tiki bar. I'm like, what is that? I had no idea. So we went to the Exotica concert. So Exotica music, for people who don't know, it's a type of music from the 50s and 60s that was primarily played in tiki bars. And so we went to see a band called VanTiki, and it was incredible at a place called the Hawaiian Hut, which we talked about earlier. And that's where I was served a Mai Tai in a tiki mug. Like I said, I didn't drink at the time. I didn't like alcohol. I thought it tasted gross. Don't feel that way anymore. But it just was so incredible to me. I had to be a part of that. I loved everything about it. I loved its celebration of Polynesia. I loved everything. It just pressed all my buttons. It was adventure, exploration. I loved it. And then I didn't realize how big it was. I went home, I looked online, I found out about tiki bars like across the country. I thought they only existed in Hawaii. And then I found out actually, no, they're rare in Hawaii. They were everywhere else but Hawaii. Like there's very few tiki bars in Hawaii. It's all, across the Midwest and everywhere. That's where the tiki bars are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we keep a list. So we try to go to ones whenever we're in a city. I mean, we will choose cities based on whether they have tiki.
I heard you just went to a bunch of them. You've probably been to more than me.
Yeah. So how would you, if you had to describe it, like what makes a tiki bar different than like a cocktail bar that might have tiki-like drinks on the menu, if people have not been to them?
I mean, I will say, so this gets a little weird. Like, just like every collector, passionate internet thing, there are a lot of gatekeeping and a lot of this is tiki, that is not tiki, this is blah, that is blah. And so I try to like backpedal out of that. When I first started making tiki mugs and posting my stuff up on, there was back at the early days, there was this thing called Tiki Central, and it was like an internet forum back in the forum days. I put my mugs up, and then people were like, well, that's not tiki. And then people would go on for pages and pages arguing about whether my mug was a tiki mug or not. And I remember one of the guys arguing about it, saying that my mugs were not tiki mugs, was this guy named Sven Kirsten, who wrote, and I'm not exaggerating, the book of tiki. Like he literally wrote the book of tiki. So, and his book is all about what is tiki. And so I'm like, as this new artist, I'm like at home, like crying, like he doesn't think I make tiki mugs. And it just crushed me. So what makes a tiki bar a tiki bar? Purists would argue that it has to have actual Polynesian idols in it, like an actual tiki in it. I don't go that realm. I think that, this is me, I'm getting very deep into what tiki is and whatnot. I think that tiki can be a limiting term. For example, this little mug that's a squid, I struggle calling this a tiki mug. Tiki purists would say this is not a tiki mug because it does not have a tiki on it. It's not in the shape of a tiki. And so then I'm like, well, what do I call this? So I would call it maybe an exotica mug, a cocktail mug. I don't know. I struggle with it. And let me tell you, people.
And then some people would be like, mug has to have a handle. It's not a mug at all.
I get that. Oh my God. Every third YouTube comment I get is, well, where's the handle? How do you drink out of that? I'm like, use your imagination.
It's a straw.
Yeah, it's a straw. And it's okay. I mean, I totally get it. They are weird looking mugs. I mean, mug is just a weird word to use. So I don't like to put a box into it. What I would say is this. I feel that a quote unquote tiki bar, it's an escapist bar. It's taking you away from where you are to someplace adventurous and magical. That's what I think it is. It's all about escape from your dreary day to day. It's like adult Disneyland, I guess.
I love that.
So that would be my definition.
And the drinks will knock you on your ass.
Yeah, you got to be really careful. I am a total lightweight. I have a 2-drink maximum. I can't go past 2 drinks or else I'm like unconscious. So I have to be really careful.
So what's your go-to tiki drink then?
I love a 3 dots and a dash. That's one of my favorite beverages. I love a 3 dots and a dash.
Explain what it is for us.
3 dots and a dash. It's a rum-based cocktail. It has some of my favorite ingredients is St. Elizabeth's allspice dram, like allspice. Oh, so incredible. So allspice dram. Are you familiar with allspice as a spice?
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember. It's
my least
not
favorite.
Like a bit. Is it like a bitters though? Is it applied like a bitters, or is it like an actual?
They'll mix it in like it'll be like a liqueur mixer. You buy it in a bottle and it tastes like heaven. I just love that when they discovered the allspice during the spice trade, they're like, we're just going to call it allspice because it tastes like all of the spices. It's all-encompassing flavor. It's so cool. So it's allspice cinnamon. I love cinnamon in cocktails. So allspice cinnamon. I believe it has falernum in it, which is a super cool word to say at cocktail parties. Like, I like this falernum. Falernum is like a.
I always say falernum, but that sounds right. Not as good as the way that you said it.
The 2 hipster test words, if you ask someone if they're into tiki, is you make them say falernum or orgeat, which is people say orgat or orgeat. It's the orgeat. I said it wrong forever, and I probably still am saying it wrong. It's French. It's like orgeat. But that's the almond liqueur that's in a Mai Tai. But the flavor profiles I like: cinnamon, the allspice jam, and falernum. And falernum is a kind of a blanket term for another spice liqueur. So people will make it at home. They'll take like a cheesecloth and you put in a lot of clove and nutmeg and all these other things, and you let it steep in rum for an eternity, and then it makes this incredible fluid. So yeah, those are my favorite cocktails. And it's called 3 Dots and a Dash because, oh God, I'm touching it. I touched it. Okay. It's called 3 Dots and a Dash because it is, the garnish is a pineapple skewer and 3 cherries, and it's the sign for victory. So it came. That's where that you can look at the date where it came out. It's the end of World War II. So it's the symbol, the telegraph sign for victory, and that kind of shows you the timestamp. So a lot of the cocktails, they're all from the World War II era, and slightly before the golden age tiki drinks. But it's super hard to make at home. So that's why I like to get it in bars.
I'm trying to think if we have a tiki bar at home, but I don't know that we have allspice dram.
Oh, you should definitely go out and get some. Saint delivered us.
But
you got to. I mean, it lasts forever. It doesn't go bad. The things that are tough in that is like cinnamon syrup goes bad. So I'll make up cinnamon syrup at home, but then I got to drink it all, and I can never drink it fast enough. So yeah.
That quite literally, hilariously, that sounds like a drink that I would hate.
Oh really? Like what's your flavor?
Yeah.
Like what do you like?
I like more citrus stuff, but like I hate allspice. I hate cloves. I don't like cinnamon. I mean, I like cinnamon.
Do you like
but
a
it has to be
juicy drink?
Very specific.
You should do a navy grog. Navy grogs are amazing. That's a navy grog is.
I think that's really cool. I just think it's funny how like people's palates are so different.
It's crazy. I mean, it took me like 5 years, but I finally became what they call a water bearer at Holly Paley. Holly Paley is this incredible tiki bar in Portland, and if you drink every drink on their menu, you get a necklace, and you get to congratulate yourself for spending an absolute fortune. But it took me 4 years because, like I said, I'm a lightweight, so I think it took me almost 5 years. But I finally drank them all. But it is crazy, the insane range of flavors. And you never know what it's going to taste like looking at the weird name. And then and then finding flavors that I thought I would hate, but I actually love. And, ones that I thought I would love, but I actually don't like.
Yeah, because some ingredients can just set the mood for the whole thing. And you're just like, ooh, I don't really like that.
Yeah, there are certain, what's it called? The absinthe, the Pernod. If you put that into a cocktail, that's going to just steamroll over everything. And you'll see when they put it in cocktail drinks, like at Holly Paley, they have like a little eyedropper, and they'll just put like a drop into it because it's like handling like nitroglycerin. Like you can't put too much of that in there, or it's gonna.
Yeah.
There's a really good tiki bar in Indy called the Inferno Room, and they actually have the largest collection of Polynesian masks of the entire world. I think it's like a whole museum in there. It's insane.
Yeah, we just went to an event there back in the summer.
I'm jealous. I'm very jealous.
I want to say it was called Makahiki.
Well, if you're ever in Indy.
Oh yeah.
It was great. Rachel and I went Indy Makahiki. It was big. Spike was there from Spike Breezeway, if you know Spike.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I only know of him. I just watch his show. I don't know him.
Yeah. So he's they had music there. They had vendors selling
that's awesome.
Mugs and glassware and art. It was great. So it was a good time. I'm more of a Mai Tai. I just go classic Mai Tai.
Oh yeah. Mai Tais are great. I gotta tell you, I have been in love with this yuzu Mai Tai that I've been making. So orange curacao that you put in your cocktail. What kind of curacao do you use when you make your Mai Tai? If I can totally nerd out.
Yeah, we'll use orange curacao. Yeah.
So there is a
just whatever that bottle that looks like the triple sec bottle. I don't know what it.
Okay.
But it's just the one that's just bright. But it's not a fancy.
I'm going to throw this out here. Try to look to see if you can find Pierre Ferrand dry curacao, and it's a very beautiful bottle. It's a square bottle, and the label is on like the corner, and it's got like little gilt on it. Yeah, Pierre Ferrand dry curacao. That to me is the most delicious orange curacao you will ever use in a Mai Tai. And they just came out with a yuzu version. So it's instead of the curacao orange, it's a yuzu. And that Mai Tai is incredible. You use the yuzu one. But yeah, try the Pierre Ferrand. I'd love to know what you think of that for a Mai Tai because it's
Pierre Ferrand. Okay.
It's tasty.
Rachel made me something the last time that when Ryan was out of town, Rachel made me and Erica a drink that was so flipping good.
It was I think it was the Chief Lapu Lapu.
Yes,
and it's very heavy on the juices, the orange juice, the pineapple juice.
Yeah. And I got a little wasted, and because I drank most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like the blue. I like anything with bright colors. Unfortunately, I have my stomach has an aversion to pineapple, so I have to limit the pineapple, but I still drink it.
Yeah.
Because my brain loves pineapple.
Well, the thing with it, I think that is incredible about the classic tiki drinks is they hide the alcohol in them so well. You don't know how much alcohol is in them. They're very easy to drink quickly. Just be very careful with them. They're delicious.
Like a painkiller. I mean, that's pretty subtle.
I like a good painkiller.
That's pretty
painkillers are good.
Standard.
Yeah.
So do you have favorite tiki bars on your list of the ones you've been to?
I will say, I love them all. They're all good. Holly Paley is incredible here in Portland. If you're ever in Portland, go to Holly Paley.
We've been there once, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So unbelievable. I love Holly Paley. I will say the one like transcendental experience I've had at a tiki bar is the Mai Kai in Florida. It's the last, I think, Golden Age tiki temple left, and there used to be it's humongous. They would have it has a giant dinner show. Back in the day, you would go in your tuxedo to the Mai Kai and sit down and you'd watch this whole floor review. It's unbelievable. They have a bar on the side of the restaurant called the Holokai, and it was built by the set decorators from the Mutiny on the Bounty, the one with what's his name, Marlon Brando, and they used all this stuff that they had from that to build the bar. So it's like you're in a real ship. It's so gorgeous.
If it's that little bar, we've been there once because I used to travel to Fort Lauderdale for work all the time, and Rachel went with me, and we were like, let's go to the Mai Kai and see what it's like.
A little bar. Yeah, okay.
We couldn't do the event, I don't think, and I think I just looked up. They're temporarily closed now because I think they sold it or something, and they were renovating.
It's a long story. It's getting completely renovated. I'm so happy about it. What did you think of it when you went? Were you like? We
just did the little bar. It was nice. It felt like you were in a ship, and there was like a little ship port area that you were kind of looking at.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
We go. Every year they have something called the Hukilau in Florida, and it's the big tiki event down there. And they will take over the Mai Kai for a night, and you can go and you see the whole review, the floor review, and unreal. They haven't had it for several years. It got severely damaged by a hurricane, and everyone thought it was going to go under. But like an angel investor bought it out. They spent years completely renovating it top to bottom. I can't wait for it to reopen. I seriously will probably fly down there to see it when it reopens. Cool. It's one of those places you hear about it so often that I'm like, okay, everyone take it easy. It can't be that cool. I'm afraid when I go, I'm not going to like it. But then when I went there, I was like, okay, this is better than anybody said. It's just super fun. Yeah. Right.
Wow. I mean, there is something about being willing to go a long way to go to this place where it's it's just nobody would just go to a random bar somewhere and be like, I'm coming to this city to go to this bar,
Yeah. No, that was, when we would go to that's the farthest we traveled for a tiki event for sure. That's across the entire country, but it was fun. It was a great event. I can't recommend
and the weather was really beautiful whenever you went.
Yeah. And they had giant iguanas walking around everywhere, which is so weird.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I was asking Rachel before, okay, what if you had to list a top 3 that you had? So our 3 were the Foundation that was in Milwaukee, which is kind of a smaller one. False Idol that's in San Diego.
Oh yeah, I love
False Idol. If you've been there.
Yeah.
And then the Inferno Room was in our top 3 as well in India.
Yeah, nice. I haven't been to False Idol yet. I want to go really bad. We've made mugs for False Idol, but I haven't been there. I'd love to go someday. We did a mug for them. I have all my paint pens in one here. It's like a barrel kind of mug for them. But I'd love to go. False Idol is owned by Martin Kate, who owns Smuggler's Cove, which is the bar that I went to when I decided that I liked booze. So I was like, I don't like tiki drinks. And when I started making tiki mugs, we went to San Francisco for a work trip, and we're like, oh, everyone talks about this Smuggler Cove place. Let's go check it out. And I ordered a Nui Nui, and it was incredible. I was like, oh, this is what everybody's talking about, and I'll have another. And then I had one more, and that was when I learned that I have a 2-drink maximum.
Wow, that's like a zombie or something. You're like, don't realize what these.
Oh yeah. You know, the Nui Nui. I mean, it's not as strong as I think they call it the pupule there, but it's such a delicious drink. Highly recommend. But I love Smuggler's Cove. It's cool that you guys are in a totally different part of the country, so you see different bars than I see. Like I haven't been to, but there's so many to see, and so many open. It's really cool to just go to a new one.
Yeah, and like Rachel's got the list. I think she said the other day we've been in a 40.
Wow,
that's around the country,
amazing.
And a few overseas, like London and stuff. But
have
yeah,
you been to San Francisco yet to do the San Francisco?
Yeah, we went to the Tonga Hut. That's
okay.
Downtown San Francisco, and then we did go to the Smuggler's Cove. I don't remember
if
there's another one, but I know those were the two primary ones.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many in California. We'll need to get to that area.
So many. Yeah.
And see some of those. But yeah, we were just in Nashville and went to the 3 there, which was really nice because they were all within like half a mile of each other.
So cool. Nice.
And they were just all so different from each other. So you know, it's not a copy and paste. And something like the Smuggler's Cove, you walk by it on the street, you don't even know it's there.
We were standing in front of it, and I called them asking where they are, and they're like, "We're right behind you."
Because the window's like black, and they don't even have a sign on the door. You just
it's just a port and starboard light by the door, and that's it. Yeah.
That's how the Inferno Room is. You have no idea. Yeah.
So cool. But it's a huge building though, so you know there's something there, but you don't know that. Yeah, that's what's inside.
That's cool. I'm dying to go someday. I'd love to go.
Yeah. Maybe you should go when they do the Makihiki when they have.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna look that up. Makihiki. I'm writing it down.
Makihiki. Yeah, it's in. I think it was in September, so it was a pretty good time of year, and it was they had tastings and they had music, and it was great.
Yeah, I wish I could have gone, but I was gone.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna make that a recurring trip because I mean Indy's our backyard basically, so
yeah.
We got one here in town, and we go to the tiki bar here every now and then. It's Tiki Bang Bang is what it's called.
Nice.
So it's pretty good, but yeah, looking forward to it. Do you have a home tiki bar?
We have two. There's the Kapu Hut, which is it's a really interesting tiki bar, and then we have the Monkey's Fist, which is in Springfield, which is the town next to Eugene, and I've been there a couple of times, and it's also pretty cool, I got to say. The Kapu Hut is interesting because it's the only tiki bar I know that has a fireplace, like a working fireplace. It's so weird.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have one in your physical home?
Oh, in my actual house? Okay, everyone always asks me that. We have kind of a tiki house, if you will. We went a little bananas when we built out the house. So our house, we designed it to be like, we love the national park system. So the studio we designed to be a ranger station, and then the house we designed to be the National Park Lodge of Mount VanTiki. So if you go in there, it is themed as if it's a National Park Lodge on a volcano in the tropics. So it's pretty weird. Yeah,
that's cool. And then do you
have to come and visit
a bunch of your mugs and stuff in the house, or like a dedicated area that you
have a lot of mugs in the house. Yes, we do. It can be a bit of a problem, and we have I have had it. I mean, the house is a project. It's a long project, and it's been a long endeavor. But it's pretty. You'll have to come visit. You have to come visit and see.
There we go. All right, Becca. Any last questions for Henrik?
What's your favorite color?
My favorite color is like teal or green. It depends in there. Like a deep sea green. Does that make sense?
That's a good choice. Choice.
And I love a satin glaze. I'm all about a satin glaze. Yeah.
Satin. Yeah. Nice.
I live for finding a good satin glaze.
You and everybody else.
As long as it's not underfired or whatever, and it's like nice and consistent.
Yeah. And it doesn't pinhole. Oh my God.
Speaking of satin glazes, the Tacoma pottery
Clay Art Center.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I have a lot of my memory's terrible. The Tacoma Clay Art Center has an extremely good satin black, by the way.
Oh really? Oh really? All right.
Yeah, and they'll ship it dry.
Okay.
So just so you know.
All right.
They have an extremely good line of glazes. Just generally, they're extraordinarily intelligent there, and they've just got good shit.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten anything from them. I get stuff a lot from Seattle Arts. The Seattle. No. Okay.
Becky used to have to drive there a lot, I think, for her
really?
play, right?
I mean, okay, to be fair, Seattle Pottery Supply changed hands like 3 years ago, but I was not a fan of them before that happened.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I got to tell you, since COVID, I have been bringing in glaze from all over the entire country to find certain colors and whatnot. It's just been really weird times. Yeah. I'm not fancy. I don't make my own glazes, so I buy everything pre-made.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with that. You make your own goddamn mold. So
yeah, like you could make the
fine.
mold, you made the item, you're spraying glazes, you're painting glazes, yeah.
Whew. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny though. All those things that the ceramic artists self-censor on, like, well, I don't make my own stuff. But yeah.
There's so many steps to go into it. Like
we're not those people because
do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Plus, when you're making complete, like, I mean, maybe you would use a liner glaze and have a few gallons of it, but having gallons of the same glaze that you just keep doing on new forms is kind of limiting, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I do struggle. I've reached out, like Mako. I've tried to get them to sell me more than just pint containers. I'm like, can you just put it into a bucket? And they won't do it. I don't have enough volume. They have a program where they'll do that for the big spenders, I guess, but I'm not a big spender.
That's so infuriating.
It's maddening. And I'm like, well, can you let me send back my empty pint containers? I wish that's like a ceramic pet peeve of mine that all of these pint containers that don't get reused. But I digress.
Some of them
we have so many.
Some they could do in gallons, but it's probably like clear glazes and not like every glaze.
I get those in gallons, stuff like that. But like a lot of it's okay. It's a small problem to have.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I'm a big Mako Stroke and Co fan, and so I get it. I mean, I don't make my own glazes anymore. I'm done with that shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for me. It's about like I have what I used to think was a big studio, but now I've heard is a small studio. So I don't have enough space to set up like a dedicated mixing of glaze setup. Yeah, I do look at Kurt's amazing giant cavernous hangar studio all the time. I'm like, man. So,
you're like,
but I know he's downsizing
space.
I'm sure. I mean, Denise talks about it all the time. Like, if we ever put an extension on the studio, it would just fill up with stuff, and we like,
It's true, and it's not as big as you think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, really?
Yeah. He has a Greg.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
Everybody needs a good partner. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's funny what the internet does to space. Like when people visit this studio, they're like, "It is really small. Thought it was bigger." Like, yeah, it's the wide angle lens, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. This was awesome. We covered a range of things. I'm glad we hit the business side of it, the fun side of it, the process, all that stuff. Like, there's just such a range. And, like, we don't have a lot of people that work in mold making and slip casting. So it's just such a unique expertise that, I mean, we've had Kurt on, but, like, having that expertise that we just have zero, like, experience with is just invaluable to people out there that are, especially if they're going through like making things that are super unique, that are higher priced, or what seems like high price, but is probably undervaluing what they're pricing it at. A mug at $60 that you spent hours and hours working on.
Well, I mean, that's funny you say that. I mean, I think that's the biggest misnomer for slip casting is people think, well, it's just a mold. It's just you just pop it out and it's done. Like they don't realize it's a lot of work.
And then I'm sure there's a sense of like, if you stick to just doing the same forms and you just put a glaze on it, you kind of do have to have that cycle of evolving and making new things, because there's probably a sense of, okay, well, this is just a mold, how is that different than something
definitely.
that they could buy that's a China one when you've been doing the same one for years or something,
Exactly. Yeah.
Having the evolution and growth is important.
Yeah, no, it's been, I thank you so much for having me on. It's been, I apologize for my earbuds. I'm very embarrassed about that.
Don't be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed. It's totally fine. We mess up all the time.
Well, it's super cool being here. I love your show because you talk about the nitty gritty of doing what we do. And it's refreshing to hear, because I think, especially in like, for someone like me that just sells things online and doesn't get a lot of outside interaction, it's refreshing to hear other artists talking about the same struggles and same issues and whatnot. It's nice to hear. So, yeah.
There's so much to stay in your own world and just, get bogged down in that. And you don't really, if you don't have a local community or people to talk to, even if you're on the internet, you can communicate. It feels kind of isolating regardless.
Totally. And if you ever want to drive up and, hang out, you're always welcome.
I looked at it and it's 15 hours. So we'll see how the winter finances go, but there's a possibility.
Unless you make a trip up to Washington or something for,
But also, so anyway, where can people find you?
That's the big question. It's VanTiki, at VanTiki on Instagram. I usually do most of my stuff. And then I'm also on YouTube. I haven't posted in a while, but I'm very proud of my Tiki Technical Tuesday endeavors on YouTube. And it's VanTiki Studio on YouTube. And we'll have a new episode soonish on that.
Yeah, those Tiki Technical Tuesdays, even your like trailers and teasers are great. Like, so.
They're so good.
They're super fun to do. I really enjoy them. That also was Denise's idea. She's the brains of the outfit, and they've been a lot of fun. And I've learned a lot making them, and I love when other ceramic artists watch them and then give me feedback. It's been a great font of knowledge for me, for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Would you ever have a van, a physical van that's Tiki, like VanTiki?
People ask me that all the time. In Hawaii, I used to have a Tiki bike. I had my mobile curiosity stand. That's what I vended with in Hawaii. I'd vend on the beach by my house. I would put all my stuff on that and bicycle to the beach. And everyone's like, it should be a van. I'm like, well, I can't afford a van. So it was bike Tiki back then. Yeah.
You could take when you're at your 25-year anniversary of ceramics, you can make a mug that's a van and it's a Tiki.
That would be pretty cool.
Tiki face.
That's a good idea. That would be good.
Yeah. And then you can bury that in your yard.
I can hide it. I should just, I'll go bury it. I'll go out into the woods in Oregon and hide like a treasure trove of mugs.
Yeah.
Make a map for it.
Just make one mug and then bury it somewhere and make a treasure map, and it's a fight to the death.
It's released. Go find it.
Yeah. I'm on it.
You better bury it in the Colt woods.
Yeah.
They got to go on that property to get it.
Yeah.
Right enough. You have to fight the skunks.
Yes.
All right. Really appreciate it. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was so much
fun. For being gracious with your time.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. It was super cool. Is it like 3 a.m. for you guys now? I feel terrible.
No, it's 9:40.
No, it's 9:40.
Okay, cool.
I still got to unload a kiln and do dots on mugs.
I'm gonna get some work done in the studio. I still got a couple hours to awake time at least.
I've got the big post-it on the doorknob of the studio that says kiln on it to remind me to turn the kilns on before I walk out of here.
There you go. Set it. Get that controller going. There you go.
Fire up the L&L.
Yeah. There we go.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome.
It was super fun. When will this air? Am I allowed to ask? I don't know.
It'll air in 2 or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks. Okay,
a couple weeks.
Awesome. I can't wait. I can't wait. Hopefully you can edit out all my ear failures and
Well, I'll edit out a few. I'll edit out the one that you definitely asked me to edit out, and then
the rest of it's just real life. It's just what
it's real life.
Nice. I like it. That's why I like your podcast.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for listening.
Okay.
And we'll catch y'all next time. Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Hey everybody, thanks for listening to another episode of Wheel Talk. This podcast is made possible through the contributions of all of our listeners who always ask us great questions, leave us reviews, and contact with us through social media. Thanks to all the fellow makers as well who take time to be interviewed and share about their lives and businesses.
And thank you to Ashley from Boldover Ceramics and Lindy from Lindy Garner Ceramics for their assistance on the Wheel Talk podcast Instagram. You are invaluable. Thank you to everybody.